Bay Area baseball for the past 29 years.
As I always say, baseball reflects what life is all about.
This is Talkin' Baseball with Marty Laurie.
That's what we do. We talk ball.
On KNBR, the sports leader.
Well, nice job, Raph, on the open today. Glad to be with you. It is early Saturday morning, obviously 7 a.m. Pacific time, but we're ready for baseball. The Giants and the Cardinals coming up today in Game 2 at Busch Stadium. The day off yesterday, and, of course, on Thursday, the historic game at Rickwood Field, where I was at Rickwood Field to see that game on Thursday, and I was there all week, Monday through Friday. And now back, ready to talk some baseball and talk about what I saw in Birmingham and also at Rickwood Field, which was very, very interesting. One of the most interesting trips I've ever had. So we've got a whole show today to talk about it. Ryel is going to join us, and she was there in Birmingham and was honored during the game, and a wonderful shot of her and a commendation of her. Wonderful job and what she's done in a groundbreaking way, being the first female African-American broadcast PA announcer, and she was recognized there on national television. So she'll be with us today, as well as Mark Simon, Bruce Jenkins, and then Sean Jelly. I had a chance to talk with him, the significance of him being at Rickwood Field, as he's very, very good guy to talk to. I enjoy that. And he's having a heck of a season, too. So we've got that. And Sandra G was there, and she talked to Jordan Hicks and others. So we'll have a good show for you today. But it's really just one of those weeks you say, wow, did all that happen? And it was crazy enough leaving for Birmingham on Monday, and with the trip ahead of us and not knowing what Rickwood Field would be like and the weather in Birmingham. And Birmingham has such a long history. If you want to read something very good, read Scott Osler today in the Chronicle. If you get it online, San Francisco Chronicle Sports, he really sort of dissected the week in Birmingham and also the game at Rickwood Field. But it was very interesting being in Birmingham and seeing what the city was like. It's a very northern-looking city. It's not an agricultural city at all. It's really a city that was founded on steel, iron ore, and things like that. And when we tell the story, I told it so many times over the week, Rickwood Field goes back to 1910, 1909, 1910. It was built. It's 114 years old. And Rick Woodward was the person who built the ballpark, and he was someone who lived in Birmingham, and his father owned the steelworks, and iron ore was the sort of the foundation of what the city was built on, not agriculture. So it was not that way. It was founded in 1871, and that's when it all started in Birmingham, which was after the Civil War. So Rick Woodward loved baseball, and the dad said, you can't do that. You got to get an education. You can't hang around baseball. So they sent him off to MIT, and at MIT, he learned the industry, the steel industry, and the engineering and all that kind of stuff. And then he came back to Birmingham, and he said, hey, I still like baseball. So his father let him buy the Birmingham Barons, which was a team in the Southern League, the minor league team in Birmingham. Of course, it was the white team, and the African-American, the black players couldn't play in the league at that time. So he buys the Barons, and now he needs a stadium. So, knowing the steel industry, that's all he did know, he built a stadium. And it was with steel, and it's still standing, and it needed a name. And his name was Rick Woodward. And he said, how about if I call it Rickwood Field? And that's how Rickwood Field got its name. And I was right there. I went there on Tuesday. Beer Ken and I went out there, and Sandra was out there. And we got a good look at Rickwood Field. And believe me, it was built in 1910. You can still see the steel. It's standing as strong as can be. But you look at the roof of the stadium, and it's not quite as secure. But Major League Baseball and the city of Birmingham put much millions probably into this field and redid it as far as the playing surface was concerned, and it was absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. A beautiful playing surface, big batter's eye in center field, and just couldn't be better. Green grass and everything looked good. The infield was smooth as possible. But the field was great, but the stadium, you got the feel that you were in a stadium that was very old. The seats were wooden seats like we used to see at the Polo Grounds or at Candlestick and, that sort of thing. But just walking in through the old turnstile, just the feel of the ballpark, you knew that you were in an old stadium. So it was beautifully done, and it was created really for this game, which was a very special game to honor the Negro Leagues and also to revive Rickwood Field and baseball in the city of Birmingham, and especially for African-American baseball players who should be recognized from the Negro Leagues. And there were many who were brought back from the game, and we'll talk about that at the as the show goes on, the way they were presented as the game began, as each player from the team, the Cardinals and the Giants, wheeled out in wheelchair or some device, one of the older players from the Negro Leagues, and it really was very moving to see it done. Baseball did a good job with this, and of course, you don't have the Negro Leagues happening but for baseball excluding black players from Major League Baseball, and Rube Foster and others realized, hey, we can play pretty well, let's make our own league, and they did. And Birmingham became part of the Negro American League in the late 30s. But before that, it was part of the Negro Southern League. And that was sort of the minor league in the Birmingham area. And then Willie Mays played in that league for the Chattanooga Choo-Choos. And his dad would drive him up there on the weekends when he was just a 10th grader at Fairfield Industrial High School. And that's where he was discovered by the Black Barons, who at that point were the team in the Negro Southern League. And they saw Willie, and they said, man, this kid can play. And they put him in left field, and they put him in center field as a high school kid. And that's where it all started. The other interesting thing I learned in being there, and we talked about it on the show last week, Piper Davis was his first manager with the Birmingham Black Barons. And I always wondered, and I think I may have said this last week when we had Bill Plott on, how he got the name Piper, because he came from a small mining community, and they were all over Birmingham, and they all had baseball teams. And Lorenzo Davis became Piper Davis because he came from the little mining town, mining camp of Piper. So you had that feeling as well. But that was Rickwood Field. That is where the game took place, and you had that feeling of really being in an historical spot. I got to see Rich Waltz, my good friend. He broadcast the game Tuesday night between the Birmingham Barons of the Southern League. Boy, there's a lot of things to keep straight here. And the Montgomery Biscuits, I think they're called, of the Southern League. And the game was played Tuesday night and was broadcast on MLB as part of their minor league broadcast. And I got to see Rich. And the broadcast booth was on the roof of Rickwood Field. And I want to tell you, it was hot. It was very humid there. It's about 90 degrees and 90-degree humidity. And, I'm used to Arizona. If it's 105, we can deal with it. Well, this 90 and 90 was not very comfortable. But Rich had an air-conditioned booth that they created for him up on the roof of Rickwood Field. So I went up there and watched a few innings with him and got a real good view of what the park was like, but then realized the roof was not very secure, believe me. But the whole park itself, it reminded me of Surprise. It reminded me of a spring training park, a very quaint, very intimate spring training park. That's what it reminded me of. But they did a great job of cleaning it up and getting it ready for Major League Baseball. Then on Tuesday night, of course, watched a few innings there and went back to the hotel. And then Rich was the one who texted me. Rich Waltz texted me and said, that's awful news. And boy, as soon as we heard that, Beer Can said, boy, Willie. And then my phone just blew up and exploded as we learned of the passing of the great Willie Mays at 93. And boy, it was just shocking to know that here I was in Birmingham honoring Willie and the Negro Leagues, and the game was sort of focused on Willie, and his great career, and here he was passing at age 93 on Tuesday night. So things really took off after that, and those are things we'll talk about on the show today. Bruce Jenkins wrote a beautiful column about it as well, and Scott Osler, as I said today, wrote a very good column. But I got to see a lot of Birmingham. I really did, and I went on the Civil Rights Tour, and I think the highlight for me was to realize what had happened in September of 1963 at the 16th Street Baptist Church, when 4 little girls were killed in a bombing by the Ku Klux Klan. And there was one survivor who was in the restroom where the 4 little girls were killed, and there was another young little girl in there, and she survived. And I got to hear her speak at the 16th Street Baptist Church. I was there, and I got to see the beautiful stained glass that was donated to that church as it was rebuilt. But I was right in the spot where this tragedy happened in 1963, and I got to meet Sarah Collins Rudolph, and there's the book that she wrote, and she was there to speak to us and tell us about the horror of that day. And she survived, and she lost an eye, and she was in the hospital for a few weeks, but she did survive, and she's here to tell the story about it. So for me, she even autographed the book to me as I'm holding it up on the stream here. So that for me was extremely moving. Then to realize, remember the Green Book, the movie? This was the book that told African-American movie stars, baseball players, anyone who traveled, where you could stay in the South. And we got to see the motel that was the only place in Birmingham where African-American celebrities and movie stars, Duke Ellington and people like that, could stay. We saw that. That was very interesting, where Martin Luther King stayed, and that was bombed. And luckily, he left there hours before that bombing took place. So Birmingham, it's a rough city. It's a rough city, believe me. It's still got a long way to go. But baseball picked Birmingham, and maybe one of the most racist cities in the country. That's where the dogs were put on kids and the fire hoses by Bull Connor, who was the sheriff of that county, Jefferson County. And, of course, we talked last week that Bull Connor became Bull Connor by being the play-by-play announcer for the Birmingham Barons. That's the way he got known, and he used that notoriety to become the sheriff. Then he was disgraced and taken out of office, and he came back during the George Wallace era and all the racism and all the segregation, and after Brown versus the Board of Education that said separate but not equal is not okay. And boy, Alabama and Birmingham right at the heart of all this stuff. So I got to see it, and I got to walk around and see the churches and see the motel and see the beautiful Freedom Park and the statues that were created to commemorate all the things that happened in Birmingham. So with all that in mind, we had a baseball game that was dedicated really to the preservation and acknowledgement of these Negro League players, of which there are about 150 still alive, who came back. And, of course, it was to be dedicated to Willie. And it turned into more of a memorial for Willie, and probably was at the right time to have that after his passing, because we needed something. And Fox did a good job of doing it, and KNBR did a great job. And I was on with J.D. and Carrie Crowley and Pop, and I know Murph and Marcus did a good job with it, and I'm sure that Tom and Adam did an exemplary job of commemorating and remembering Willie. And I'd like to open the mics up and, our phone lines up maybe at the end of the show today. So maybe the last half hour or so we can think about if you want to call in and say something about Willie. I'd like to do that. So that's sort of what the week was like. A great learning experience for me. Believe me, it was to see this. And it is the heart of SEC country. That's the other part of it. And I would tell people, I went to a little school, just a little school in Gainesville, Florida, called the University of Florida. There's all these Alabama, Auburn people there. It is SEC country, believe me. So it was interesting. It really was, to see the history that goes with it. And the other thing I'll mention before we take a break here, and there was a baseball game, which we'll talk about, going to the Negro Southern League Museum that was created. If you ever go to Birmingham, you've got to see it. That league was sort of the feeder league. And in the Birmingham area, they had all these industrial teams. Every little mining camp, every company had a team. And they all played in this industrial league, and they were good. And then when they were really good, they then went into the Black Negro Southern League. And that was the feeder system to the Black Barons. And Willie played, as I said, for the Chattanooga Choo-Choos. Satchel Paige played in that league as well. It was a minor league, but they created a beautiful museum commemorating that league. And it's the Negro Southern League Museum. And I got to meet Dr. Ryel, who put it together. And if you go to Birmingham, that is another thing you have got to see. It's sort of like our Cooperstown SF in San Francisco, or obviously the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, not on the grand level of those other sort of places to see baseball, but it is certainly very, very well done. And I got to spend some time there and meet a gentleman named Adam Schwartz, who has tracked down every living Negro League baseball player. How about that? And there's about 450, of which there's 150 still left alive. So it was a wild week, believe me. And then the game. Then the game happened, and just very quickly, before we take our break, Cardinals won 6-5. Elliot Ramos, a big 3-run homer. The Cardinals knocked out Keaton Wynn, and we'll talk more detail about that game. But the important part was that it did take place at Rickwood. It did exactly what they wanted it to do, and that is commemorate the Negro Leagues and black baseball in Birmingham and the history of Birmingham. And baseball got that done. So I thought that was successful, and I'm glad to be back. And we're ready to talk baseball again. All right, we'll take a break. Ryel, who was honored there, as I said when I opened the show, on Fox TV for the extraordinary work that she has done. And Ryel wants to talk about that with us, and I'm glad to have her on the show with us. So we'll take a break and come back with Ryel Brooks Moon right after this.
Talking baseball with Marty Lurie on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Experience the epitome of luxury and craftsmanship with Inicio Windows and Doors, another exciting product line from BMD Manufacturing. Inicio Windows and Doors sets the standard in ultra-premium European design. Wow, for the most demanding American building standards. Available both in steel and aluminum, they are meticulously engineered to elevate your living space to new heights of sophistication. Learn more about Inicio Windows and Doors today. Discover the perfect blend of European beauty and style with unwavering durability and strength. Visit InicioWindows.com. INICIO Windows.com. Inicio Windows and Doors, where European design meets American craftsmanship. Vans Bridge Bank delivers their clients full relationship banking, including treasury management solutions and global market services. Bridge Bank offers financing solutions to businesses for their working capital, equipment, and real estate needs. This is very important in today's world. Fred Voss is the Senior Managing Director of Bridge Bank's commercial lending efforts in Northern California. He has commercial banking teams in San Jose with Jesse Garcia, San Francisco, Oakland, Cheadle, Cordova, and in Pleasanton. Bridge Bank, it's like banking at home. I can't say enough about it.
The 2-0 delivery, and May sends another one. Tell it, bye-bye, baby. Aaron doesn't even move. It's going far up into the center field bleachers. Willie Mays has tied a record, 4 home runs in a game. County Stadium is going mad. The 2-0 delivery, and May sends another one.
Prepping you for today's orange and black ball game, we now take you back to Talkin' Baseball with Marty Laurie on KNBR, the sports leader.
All right, great to have you back with us on this Saturday morning as we get ready for baseball today. What a pleasure to bring in a dear friend, and that is Ryel Brooks-Moon, to talk a little bit about this experience this week and everything else. So, Ryel, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Marty. I'm doing well. I told Raph, I said, only you and Willie could get me up at this hour on a Saturday morning. I don't even know what time zone I'm in, to tell you the truth.
Me either. Believe me, this was quite a week, and I'm so glad that you could be part of it. But let's talk about Willie first of all, and your relationship with Willie, and sort of the godfather of San Francisco baseball, the face of really the franchise, and he has touched so many people who never saw him play. But in life, he touched so many people just with his amazing exuberance and his history. Tell us about your relationship with Willie and your thoughts about him.
Well, as you know, Marty, I've always been amazed and in awe of the fact that he knew who I was and he knew my name, and he was my biggest cheerleader and my biggest champion from day one. And he was like that with everybody. Everybody sharing stories of how gracious he was and how generous of spirit he was. And that's the story that I wanted to spread this week. That, yes, we know he was an amazing, the best ever to play the game. He was a Hall of Famer, but he was also a Hall of Fame human being. That's what I will always remember the most about him.
Yeah, he would even tease you. He would. He would.
Yes.
He'd love to see you, and he always had a kind word. Isn't it amazing?
Always. I mean, it was just joy. He's had a zest for life when he could have been, angry and bitter, and he just had a zest for life, and he wanted the best for everybody, and it showed. And he made you feel like when when you were with him, and it made you feel like you were the only person there, on earth, right? You were having a special time. He made you feel so special.
How did you hear about Willie's passing on Tuesday, Ryel?
Well, Tuesday morning, and by the way, thanks to the Giants for inviting Tommy and myself out for that historic game.
Yes.
So Tuesday morning, I was actually texting with Renee, his caregiver, and she was saying he was in really good spirits and he was enjoying watching his own history play out on the news and everything. And he was planning a watch party for the game and everything. And then she sent me a personal message, just offering her support to me and whatever my next chapter is. And she says, we're all rooting for you. And she said she read the text to Willie, and Willie said, add my name to that list. And then I was like, okay, this is amazing. Yeah. So then we fly all day and all night. We get to Birmingham. I swear, Marty, I was exhausted, getting ready to lie down. One of my former colleagues at the Giants calls my husband. Tommy puts her on speaker, and I could tell in her voice when she calls me Auntie Ryel, and I could tell in her voice, I knew what had happened. So I found out that night that we got in and checked in. And then several of my former colleagues from Black Excellence, ERG, came to the hotel room, and we just kind of had our own, like little memorial for him, like the six of us, and just kind of shared our memories, and we're just comforting everybody. So, and then Wednesday, Marty, I really didn't get out and see much of the city because it was a shock having, had that connection with him that morning and then getting to Birmingham and then he's gone. And Wednesday, I was just trying to process it. I got a lot of media requests and everything, and I just had to sit with it and process it. It brought back memories, as you know, my mom, my grandpa, just everything. So it was a lot. It was a lot. My grandpa's the reason I love baseball, the barnstorming teams that came through Texarkana, Texas. And so just being there and around all of that history, it was profoundly moving. And of course, Willie would, want that game that's what he would do, Marty, right? He was like, I'm going to check out. It's not about me so much, but thank you. I'm going to watch. Somebody said he's going to watch with his teammates in heaven, and you're right. It gave us a day to process it and then really honor him the next day at the game.
Yeah, plus Michael May, Ryel is with us, and we love you, and I'm so happy to have you with me this morning. Michael, his son was there, and I know you got to spend some time. We'll get to your video and being on national TV, which was fabulous, but I got to talk to Michael on the day of the game, and he was there early. I was there early as well. And he was going through the things he would have to do, and we sat down and talked a little bit, and it was so hot, there was 90 degrees humidity, and, I'm not used to this. So we sat down and we were talking, and, we actually had one of those lighthearted moments that he said, Dad understood. Well, they've done everything they can. They've honored me. They've honored all the people that I played with, all the great players of the Negro Leagues. I've done everything I could. I think that's enough for me. And the ultimate mic drop. That was it.
That is the perfect analogy. That is just perfect. It was great to see Michael. That's the first time I obviously had seen him in a while, and Barry as well. So it was quite an emotional couple of days.
Well, let's talk about your appearance on Fox, and they did recognize you during the game for your accomplishments. And let's talk about what you have accomplished and how they did recognize you, because it was beautiful. And then to get that standing ovation from everyone at the park, really, I was moved to tears when I saw it.
Oh, my gosh, Mark. Well, let me correct you. It was not on national TV. It was during an inning break. It was on the scorebord at Rickwood, which that's an honor already, right? Right.
That's right.
And I knew they alerted me that they were going to do that the day before, and I said, no, it's about Willie. Please give that minute back to him. And they were adamant about it. They were like, no, we're still going to do it. And then I thought, I'm not bragging or anything, but I was like, Willie would have wanted me to have that moment. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I feel like he would have wanted me to be recognized in that way because he was so proud of what I did accomplish. And like I said, my biggest cheerleader. So I went with the moment, and the producer and the camera guy comes over, and the moment was blessed because Barry looked at me. He was in the row in front of me to my left. He looked at me. He blew me a kiss. He gave me a thumbs up. I blew him a kiss back, and the producer asked the camera guy, "Did you get that? Did you get that?" He's like, I got it. But it was like Willie was blessing that moment, through his godson. There was just a lot of spiritual stuff going on for me at Rickwood, I have to say, Marty. But that was a really special moment. And actually, Barry was the first one on his feet to lead the standing O. That's my guy.
It was wonderful. And how about the reception you got from the fans? They had not seen you for a while. How about the reception you got from everyone when you saw them?
I cried a lot. Because it's been a long time. It's been last October was the last time I saw everybody and my former colleagues as well. So it was very emotional, and I want to thank them for embracing me and supporting me and kind of welcoming me back. That's the first baseball game I've been to. And it was very impactful. And they've always been so supportive and so wonderful to me. So I want to shout them out again and say thanks for the love. And I also want to shout out the PA announcer for the game. Jeremiah Paparaki is a young African-American young man. He's like, I did that job as long as he's been alive, basically, right? He's like 24 or something. But Jeremiah had the honor and the privilege of being on the mic for that game. And he is the first, obviously, African-American PA announcer for the Cubs. And he's the only one in Major League Baseball right now. So there you go. Shout out to Jeremiah. Great job.
Renell with us. Renell, how did you feel about the way they honored the Negro Leagues and the beginning ceremony, and, of course, Reverend Greason there to throw out the first pitch, and the fact that every ball player pushed out a Negro League player, and the Southern League Museum that we saw? Tell us a little bit about your reaction to that.
It was so powerful, and really it was very surreal, Marty. I kept saying, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm here. I wish I could, call my mom right now. A lot of the history, and you were talking about going to the Civil Rights Museum, and what struck me on the trip was how so many were not really aware of a lot of the history, which is in our lifetime. The bombing at the church. It surprised me how so many took that tour and were not aware of this history that so many now are trying to erase, but it is American history. And just to be near that was so powerful, and having parents that were raised in the Jim Crow South, couldn't help but think about them. It was an honor. It was just an honor to be there. And I could just you could feel the history there. Everybody was saying it is hallowed ground, and it absolutely was. You could just feel the history. I was so proud to be there, and it was. I'm still really processing it. I'm actually watching. I've been watching it back since I got home, and I want to shout out Reggie Jackson, if I may, at this time.
Yes. Yeah.
That was so powerful and so necessary, and so I really got to watch that and take that all in. But to see the joy, seeing it on TV and seeing the joy on the faces of the living Negro League players, and that's what they did. They played with joy. And one of them said, we weren't going to let segregation stop us from doing what we love. We weren't going to let segregation, block our joy. They never complained, never were bitter. But for Reggie Jackson to come out like that and share his experiences like that in a way he never has before was so powerful. It was a lot to take in. Like I said, I'm processing, I'm watching it again and everything. And Marty, did they do anything about the women of the Negro Leagues?
There were some exhibits at the Negro Southern League Museum of Peanut Johnson and, of course, Tony Stone. And there was another young woman who was a third base coach, believe it or not, for the New Orleans Creoles. And the owner got to know her because she worked in the hotel, and she was a great baseball fan. She knew baseball cold. He made her the third base coach.
and Connie Morgan played second base, and Effa Manley was an owner. Yeah, I didn't know if they did anything on the telecast or not, because that's what I've always been trying to champion, that there were women of the Negro Leagues. I've always wanted to tell their story, too. So just shout out to them as well. A lot of history. It was just amazing. And I'm filled with gratitude that I was able to know and love Willie Mays, and I was able to be there where he was honored and where his career started. Are you kidding me? Whose life am I leading? What is going on?
Really, we're very lucky. And, I think the Giants did a great job of coordinating this. I really do. And this was not easy to coordinate everyone and the travel and getting to the park and everything else. And Gavin Werner and Rachel and all these people. I thought they did a great job.
Great job. And Becky, great job. Absolutely. Absolutely. It was flawless, really. We didn't want for anything. Actually, we were checking out, and they were charging us for parking, and we're like, we did not have a car. And Gavin runs over, and he's like, I'll handle this. He's like Superman. It's like we didn't want for anything. It was really amazing. Shout out to the staff. And, again, it was really emotional, and I was so happy to see, some of my former colleagues. So there was a lot of emotion going on these last couple of days.
I know. You did beautifully. You did beautifully. Plus, folks should know you got a very big honor about 10 days ago, and you were named Woman of the Year in California by the State Senate and the State House of Representatives. How about that?
That was amazing. Here again, I was like thinking of my mom and dad coming from the Jim Crow South, and their middle child is being honored on the state Senate floor. I was thinking about all the shoulders that I stand on to have accomplished what I accomplished and what they sacrificed, what my grandparents sacrificed. It was incredible. And my mother-in-law was there, my sister-in-law. Of course, Tommy was there. It was really, really special. And Leah Cohen came by, the state controller. It was amazing. And C.J. Stroud was there, of all people.
Wow.
that was an added bonus. He's from Rancho Cucamonga, and he's working on prison reform because of his dad's arrest and imprisonment and everything. So he's an activist for that. And I was like, well, this is an added bonus. And he was a delight. He was a delight.
Well, I'm so glad you could be honored. You could be there and be part of it. Did you get a chance to talk to Lamont, by the way, while you were there?
I did. He came running to the dugout during the inning break, and he saw me, and his face lit up, and I started crying. And then Randy Wynn was in front of me. He tells Randy, tell Rennell to come around here. The usher will bring her to the dugout. So I got up. I hopped up, Marty. I ran without Tommy. Tommy's like, hey, wait for the husband. I was like so excited to go see Lamont. But yeah, so we did get a chance to go and visit with him. And of course, he was so disappointed he couldn't play in the game, but honored to be a part of it. And and you mentioned Reverend Greason. I mean, the national treasure, treasure, 99 years old. And I know Lamont was really touched by meeting him and everything. But yeah, it was so good to see him. And then I saw Logan Webb. He saw me, and he kind of, gave me an air hug. And so I'm going to cry again.
It was wonderful. You deserve it. It was wonderful. I'm so glad you could be part of it. And there's more in your future. Next thing for you should be on that wall of fame. That's the next thing that I say for you.
But kind of you to say. I love you. Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you on, and I'm glad that everyone could hear how special this was for you. And I'm glad the Giants made this happen for you, that you could be there. All right.
I want to thank them again. Yes. Love you, too. It was great seeing you in Beer Can, too.
All right. Be well. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Rennell. All right. Thank you. Boy, that's special. Very special. Mark Simon next, right here on the Sports Leader.
Talking baseball with Marty Laurie on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
Fans, I heard from Gene Bagato up at Bodega Bay, and with the arrival of summer and the ensuing warmer weather, there's no better place to escape the heat than the Sonoma Coast. Up at the Tides Wharf restaurant in Bodega Bay, there's something for everybody. From the always popular fried calamari and New England clam chowder to an in-house smoked fish and the Bodega Bay burger made with fresh chuck ground daily to ensure top quality. In the fish market, I love the sand dabs, one will find everything needed for a picnic at the beach or just to take home. And if you're looking to stay a while, the Inn at the Tides is just across the highway, waiting for you with its spacious rooms, all with bay views and a heated swimming pool. So if you're looking to get away this summer, remember the Tides Wharf and the Inn at the Tides in scenic Bodega Bay. Marty Lurie here, reporting from River Islands in Lathrop, Northern California's best-selling master plan community. The breaking news from River Islands is the announcement that Del Webb, the best-known name in active adult living, is coming to River Islands this fall. It's been years since Del Webb has offered a new community in Northern California, and people are already signing up for their interest list. With a September opening in view, Del Webb is building 3 different model complexes for their 9 home designs. All of the homes are single-story, and 2- and 3-bedroom plans will be available. The community will have its own lake and an amenity center with sport courts, a pool, club rooms, and a fitness center. Del Webb will be joining the River Islands roster of fine home builders that are creating all new neighborhoods near the San Joaquin River, alongside a lake or close to parks or trails. You can start your tour now at riverislands.com. Isn't it time for you to discover the islands? This one sure is for me.
Mark Simon. Mark, I love you, man.
Oh, no! All right. It's the best introduction in sports. Mark Simon of Sports Info Solutions. Mark A. Simon says on Twitter, Mark, nice to have you with us. How are you?
Thanks. I always wonder about the person that's tuning in for the first time and hears that and says, what in the world is that?
Well,
But-
it's Jerry Seinfeld going, oh, no. And,
Yes.
of course, it's the Edwin Diaz trumpets, that bring him into the game. So
Mark Simon. Mark,
and plus,
I
Mark,
love you,
we
man.
love you. Right.
Right.
And
Plus, John Miller, big fan.
we have a couple of quick shout-outs. Patrick Hammond met at Rickwood Field and just sent me a very nice email and text. And Gary Mintz of the New York Giants Preservation Society. Mark, do you know Gary? Have you been on that?
I do a little bit. I actually spoke at one of their events, so yeah.
Yep. And he just sent me a number of texts, and he's watching the stream in New York today, and they do a great job every Thursday, just about have a very special show. Well, Thursday night was something else. I was honored to be there, and I really thank the Giants for making all that happen for me to get there and be part of it. What was your take on Thursday night?
I thought it was a really good baseball history lesson from pregame and the talk leading up to the game, all the way through the game. When Bob Kendrick was on with Joe and John Smoltz, that was just terrific. I will give Joe Davis deserves a lot of credit for that broadcast because he was very well prepared. Clearly, he knew what to talk about. He knew the stories a little bit, just enough to kind of set up whoever he was talking to, and he let the experts speak. And I think that's important in a case like that. So that's the thing that I was most struck by.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch the game. You know, being there, you don't really get the feel of everything that they can bring to you on TV. But they did a half an inning in black and white, I understand.
They did, yeah. I don't know that I was as into that as some other people. But it was different. It certainly gave you a feel for what a broadcast was like when, say, Willie Mays played.
Well, I loved it. I loved being there and just being part of it. And I love the history. You know, I'm a history guy. I love the history of baseball and how everything in U.S. history goes on to a baseball field. Yep. And it certainly showed in Birmingham. But to go around the city of Birmingham and to see the monuments and to see the 16th Street Baptist Church that was bombed and the Gadsden Motel where Martin Luther King and other celebrities had to stay, you know, the Green Book and all that stuff. It really, as Rennell said, a lot of people didn't know the history, including me. I didn't know all of it. I knew some of it. But to see it firsthand and then to see the ballpark, which really was like, you know, this ancient ballpark to come alive with all these folks, it was really kind of special. So I'm glad we could share that, and you got that feeling as well. But there is a game today, and we got to play baseball again in this crazy National League where 4 spots are pretty well taken, but the other 2 spots, I think we've got about 9 teams still in the fight, and the Cardinals are one of them, and they've finally gotten the 500 again. And we've got Hicks today and Michaelis. What about this matchup today?
Yeah, the Cardinals are kind of the co-flavor of the month, I guess, with the Mets. So Hicks and Michaelis, Jordan threw the splitter very well last time. He's getting missed swings against it. We've said it before. I've said it, I think, probably 3 or 4 times when he's pitched on a Saturday, that if he gets swings and misses on the splitter, he's generally in pretty good shape. Yeah. So that's what he needs. Miles Michaelis, his sinker has been one of the more effective ones in baseball this season. In particular, the last 3 starts for him, he's gone to more fastball usage. So look for that. And opponents are hitting 147 against his sinker, including 1 of 29 in June. So, and the pitch has had some real good drop to it, sinking, as it should, kind of Logan Webb-esque, I guess. And something that the Giants have to be mindful of today.
Boy, I'm looking at Hicks, and of course I did the workup that I like to do, to get familiar with it. His 3 starts in June, and Michaelis, you're right, has had 3 excellent starts in June as well. For him, 19 innings and only 3 runs given up, 1 walk, 14 strikeouts. But Hicks, I'm looking at it, and he puts a lot of people on base. 13 in the 3rd innings, he's put 24 on base, but he's only given up 5 runs because Mark, when this guy gets people on base, he is very, very tough with runners in scoring position. That's the thing that's always jumped out at me for Hicks.
Yeah, closer mentality, so to speak.
Yeah.
And he does have to be careful because the sinker is more hittable at 95, 96 than it is at 99, 100 when he's throwing it in the bullpen. So he's got to be careful with that, and locating it well, and keeping the good part of the bat off the ball. And then the Giants' defense, particularly on the infield, has to field the ball.
You know, it's so funny you say this, the closer mentality, and of course this is the big issue with him. He's thrown 76 innings now. How far can he go? And they really treat him carefully, 5 innings or so. But that second time through, the first time through 187, 8 walks, 32 strikeouts. The second time through 265, 17 walks and 31 strikeouts. So maybe that's what you just said. Maybe the closer mentality is something he still fights with.
Yeah, that makes sense. You've got the numbers in front of you. I appreciate you quoting them rather than me for a change.
That's right. Come on, you can hire me. I will now be part of
Statistician to the stars.
Marty A. Lurie Says, and that'll be my new name on Twitter. All right, Patrick Bailey.
Yep, 4 hits.
Let me tell you, and I look right in front of me to Thursday night. He had 4 hits. And, you know, he just makes contact. He doesn't kill the ball. Now, Ramos' swing, you know, can be like an airplane engine. It's so fast and hard. This guy's swing is not like that, but he makes contact.
Yeah, he is one of these guys this year that has dropped their strikeout rate by about 10 percentage points, which, quite frankly, is a lot. He's right now, he's halfway to last year's at-bat total. And if we double his stats from right now, he strikes out 70 times instead of 100 times like he did last season. And the reason for that is he seems to be smarter about hitting the hard stuff, the four-seam fastball. He has chased it less. He has swung more when it's been in the zone. And as a result, that's more contact, like you saw the other day, and fewer misses. And he has been really good at that. It is a nice development for him as a hitter. I remember talking to him about developing as a hitter last year and learning, like, from the catcher's perspective, how he might be pitched. And he seems to have a better handle on it this season than he did at the end of last season. And the key question is, how much is he going to wear down at the end of the year?
Yeah, you know, when I'm watching with him as well, he's like Yastrzemski. He's always in a hitter's count. He's not chasing. You know, he's getting the count that he wants. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, he's been very very good with that. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yeah. Yeah,
I've noticed that. All right. Willie has passed, and I know, look, you're a New York Met fan. Willie did play for the Mets at the end of his career, and you've studied so much about baseball. I want to get your thoughts about Willie.
Yeah, well, I think you would have to say it's one of the all-time great runs. Just not just playing-wise, but life-wise. He made it to his early 90s, which is fantastic. He was the greatest living baseball player for a very extended period of time. Whether or not you believe it was him or Ted Williams or Joe DiMaggio, you should agree that after Williams and DiMaggio passed, that the title belonged to him and him alone. I feel like he in the latter part of his life, particularly like reading John Shea's book, and just reading a lot of things and how he was a presence in the clubhouse, that he was very into his role, and he understood where he stood as an elder statesman in the game. To be honest, when I went to baseball card shows in the 80s and he was there, he could be a little rough at times, but it sounds like he was really embracing of who he was in the last 25 to 30 years of his life. And I think that's really cool.
Yep. People have wonderful memories of interactions with him, especially kids and young people. He was great with that. I was thinking about it, and I know you have as well. The best center fielder for the Giants after Willie. Do you have someone? In mind? I'm trying to think of one for me.
So this is pretty crazy. When you do any sort of leaderboard and you look at San Francisco Giants history for center fielders, it's Willie Mays on this pedestal that can't be touched. And then you get into this kind of odd combination of people where Brett Butler looks really good.
God, I was just going to say him. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so if you look at like 88 for him, Brett Butler, like a close to 400 on base, an 800, close to 800 OPS. In 1988, that was really, really good. He was a great leadoff hitter. 109 runs scored that year, 43 stolen bases. Good defensive player. That's the best season that a Giants center fielder has had since Willie Mays, which seemed improbable to me when I was looking into it. But yeah, better than Pagan and Andres Torres and other guys that have come through. The Giants haven't had this, haven't really had a mega center fielder since they had Willie Mays. By the way, honorable mention, Randy Wynn, 2005. In those 58 games he played center field, hit about 360, OPS over 1,000. It was awesome. So you take that. It was amazing. He did it in very limited time. So yeah, Brett Butler, go figure on that, right? Like, who would have thought?
Oh, good. That's exactly what came to mind for me. And I was going to say Ken Henderson, but I think he was sort of contemporaneous with Willie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Ken Henderson.
He was on the list for one of his years.
Yeah, Ken Henderson would be the good switch hitter. Randy Wynn, come on, he came in here and went wild and got a good contract from that. And so spent a lot of time with Randy this week, saw a lot of him. Wonderful man. One very quick one for you. Giants get the Cubs next week. The Mets just blasted the Cubs yesterday. The Mets are on fire, I will tell you that. Last week I said you're crazy. This week I said, well, maybe he's not so crazy. But the Giants' schedule is going to be difficult for them after the Cubs,
Yeah, oh boy, it gets considerably harder. This 6-game stretch for the Giants is really important because, as we've seen, they don't match up particularly well with the Dodgers, who come to town for 3 next Friday. Then they have to go on a road trip where they hit Atlanta, which stumbled but has been better lately, and Cleveland, which has been the best team in the AL Central throughout the year. And then Toronto and Minnesota, both of whom you could argue are better teams than the Giants. It gets a little dicey after these next 6, and the Giants are skidding a little bit.
Yep, they got to get the pitching together. For me, that's the deal. The hitting has been sort of that way in baseball the whole time, but you got to get your pitching together, and they need some quality starts. They have not had many of them in June. All right, have a great Saturday. Look forward to talking to you next week. You're right, the Dodgers next weekend, so we got plenty to talk about Saturday. Have a good day, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. See you.
All right, that is Mark Simon. Mark A. Simon says on Twitter, Mark at Sports Info Solutions, if you want to email him. Boy, does a good job. And he is a Mets fan, and I know he had a run here, but the Mets are playing really good ball. I don't know what they're doing for pitching, but they're hitting. And Lindor is starting to hit now. Nimmo is crushing the ball, but the guy who's carrying him, not Pete Alonso, and Bruce and I will talk about this next, J.D. Martinez. Wow. J.D. Martinez is doing the job for the Mets. He has brought them back to life. So more coming up. We've got so much happening. It's been quite a week. And as I said, maybe this last half hour after 10:30, if you want to call in, 808 KNBR Ref is there. We can get a few people on the air if you want to do it. But we've got plenty to do. So, all right, Bruce Jenkins next right here on the Sports Leader.
Look through the window of the original Joe's on North Beach and you'll see two guys at the counter talking ball. Time for you to listen in to their conversation. Marty Laurie and the SF Chronicles' Bruce Jenkins are looking through the window of baseball. Sponsored by Original Joe's of North Beach and Westlake on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Boy, what a week. No one could have scripted this week. Believe me, a lot happened this week, and a lot of people wrote about it. Bruce Jenkins did as well. Scott Osler had a great piece, has a great piece in the Chronicle this morning about his thoughts about what happened at Rickwood Field and just the week's events that unfolded. I thought Larry Baer wrote something really very poignant about capturing the heart of how people feel about Willie Mays. And if you saw that, one of the Giants' press releases, I thought that was the best thing I had seen from someone who grew up with Willie and understood Willie. I thought that was really good. So a lot of good things happened, and a lot of good reactions this week on the passing of Willie. Bruce Jenkins joins us. Bruce, good morning.
Hi, Marty. How are you?
I'm all right. It was quite a week for me to be there.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, to be there and have it happen, Willie's passing while I'm there, and just the reaction. And as I said, you know, he was the showman. That's what he told me. He said, I asked him in that very touching moment in Palm Springs at the Barbara Sinatra luncheon in front of 1,000 people. I'd never asked him before. I said, Willie, how do you want to be remembered? And he started crying. And, boy, I said, now what do I do? You know, on the stage with him. And he said everything. I wanted to be remembered by being the man. Everything I did was for the fans. And I performed for the fans, and that is how I want to be remembered, that I came to perform for you. And you wrote your column about him, and I had that feeling of what he said, because what you said in breaking down the different areas of his life, really, it was a performance for you.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. That's what I remember so well from the days at the old L.A. Coliseum when the Giants and Dodgers came out here and getting a look at this guy. I mean, he would draw fans, people who don't know anything about the game. That's the one guy you'd notice before anybody if you went out to any game he was playing in, because he was just that way. And he wasn't. I mean, he was trying to be a showman, but he wasn't showing off. He just had an amazing natural flair. And as the Rickwood week unfolded, I was just thinking, you know, we learned that he was a teenager when he started playing with the Birmingham Barons, and he thought that was as far as he was going to get. He was so happy to be playing with these guys, and he felt they were all better than he was. And of course, they were definitely older and more mature, and you know, I guess statistically they were, but eventually his style of play won everybody over, and he's making all these great plays. He's fundamentally sound, and if anybody complained that they stuck this kid in center field, the manager Piper Davis goes, no, this is the lineup. Just believe me, this is going to work out okay. So much Mays stuff, Marty. It's so great. So many great columns. The tributes at the Rickwood game itself. He's really been honored magnificently, I think.
Yeah, and I'm glad the game was on the schedule. You know, it came at the right time. You know, the country needed it. We all needed it. To sort of, it was the memorial, the tribute. Now the Giants are going to have Monday night. You just get to the park early, be in your seat by, I say, about 6:15, because there will be a memorial for Willie Monday night. During the Cub game, and also during the game itself, and the pop-up exhibit is open on game day. Things are going to happen there. And then how about the statue in front of the park, Bruce? Did you see all the flowers and messages that people can bring there?
Oh, I haven't seen it in person, but yeah, that's just yet another way for people to sort of check in and add their, you know, just their small part in this massive tribute going on.
Yeah, and, you know, it was interesting because there were a number of people said that on Thursday they wanted something like Willie laying in state at the ballpark with the game going on, and the Giants did create something where people could come into the park, and I think 4,000 or 5,000 people did and signed the book, and there was 24 in center field and things like that. So It's quite a moment. Willie, he is San Francisco Giants baseball. Now, when he got here, it was tough for him, but in his passing and his retirement and everything else that went with Willie, he is San Francisco Giants baseball. You can take Lincecum and all the rest of them. No one could surpass Willie.
No, not at all. And you think when he got here, he was 27 years old. He was absolutely in his prime, at the peak of his powers, and there'd be many years to come. But he did have to win over the San Francisco fans who, I mean, I was down in L.A. at the time, and I wasn't part of what was going on up here. To me, it's very disappointing that people didn't warm to him quicker, because here's Major League Baseball, and here's this guy. And of course, they had Cepeda, they had great talent, fantastic talent all around him, but he had to fight through that, and of course he did, because he was Willie Mays.
Yeah, and it was unbelievable how he did do it. But in your column, you pointed out a couple of great moments. And one was the 62 playoff in the ninth inning, and he's talked about it, and it was coming up against Ed Roebuck, and the Giants needed him to get on base or to get a hit, and I forget the exact circumstances, but you described it beautifully in the column.
Well, yeah, I remember thinking, we were living and dying with that game in '62, all of us kids. I'm still in junior high school, listening to Vin Scully. And Mays comes up against Roebuck. I'm thinking, this is really not going to be good. I was actually relieved that all I did was hit a screaming liner back to Roebuck, who couldn't handle it. And then they brought in Stan Williams, and so we still haven't forgiven. I've gotten over my Dodger, passion for the Dodgers decades ago, but I still haven't forgiven Stan Williams for coughing up that game, because the Dodgers were so close. But Mays, he owned that series. The first game was 8-0 up here, and Mays homered twice. And he just said, well, that was the biggest sign that the Giants are going to be playing the Yankees in the World Series. And of course, it turned into just a tremendous 3-game series. But Mays just left his marks all over the place.
And the one I love is, he caught the last out in the 62 playoff that put the Giants into that World Series against the Yankees, and he turned around and threw it in the stands.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to that ball. He just wheeled and fired.
It was great. I loved it. He did. That was Willie. That was Willie. He was just excited. And and really, as a kid, and being in Birmingham and understanding Fairfield Industrial High School, where the black kids had to go, and that's where they played. And then his dad would drive him up to Chattanooga to play for the Choo-Choos in the Negro Southern League on the weekend. And, that's what he would do. And that's where Piper Davis saw him and said, hey, this kid can play. And you describe it perfectly. He was a left fielder, and then Piper put him in center, and everyone said, hey, you can't put the kid in center. And Piper said, go ahead.
You just leave this to me, okay? I'm going to make out the lineup card. I see this kid every day. He's got talent that you wouldn't believe, and you haven't seen anything yet. So, yeah, that's because you can imagine all these guys on the team. These guys are hard. They're hard men. They've had hard lives. They're black men in the South, and this is their thing. This is their their salvation in life, to play ball and have fun, and they were dead serious about it. They're not going to welcome any kid into that group and into the lineup. But Mays, come on, I mean, not just his talent and his game, but he just had a wonderful spirit about him. His dad told him to, he said, the things are going to be rough here for us, for all of us blacks, and you just need to rise above it. You don't clench your fist and try to, beat the heck out of everybody who slights you. You got to rise above it. And he had a wonderful manner about him that was just infectious.
But Willie became bigger in retirement, and he became bigger over the last 25 years, I'd say. He became really the icon. And, you want to talk about the Babe Ruth or, that kind of thing. Willie became that. He really became bigger afterwards.
Yeah, I thought Fox kind of underplayed it. Forget the lead announcer goes, one of the greatest players of all time. I was insulted to hear that.
Yeah.
You have to say widely considered the greatest ball player that there ever was. That's what you say. It's not a hard and fast argument, but is widely believed. One of the best didn't cut it for me.
Yeah, I got a nice email from one of my good friends and good baseball man, Martin Marks, and he said, boy, for me it was Hank Aaron or Frank Robinson. No, I don't think so.
No.
That's why we love baseball. It's a talking sport, as Vince Contronio once told me. But Willie was more dramatic, and that's the way I answered the email. I said he was just more dramatic in everything he did, and did everything that everyone else did, but in his way.
Yeah, I think that to me, Aaron is the only guy who compares, because you have to be great at every single thing if you're going to be talked about with Mays. And Frank Robinson was a fine outfielder, but he wasn't one of those guys. And and Mays was everything, and so was Aaron. He was more understated. He was a beautiful player to watch, incredibly reliable, did it all. Like Mays could have stolen many more bases, but in those days you didn't really do it. But here's a guy who was a line drive hitter. That's really what he wanted to do. he just never stopped watching those balls leave the park on a screaming line drive.
Did you get to talk to Willie a lot?
I didn't. When I first started coming into sports writing, I was around him a little bit, and he was often kind of cantankerous and bitter about things.
Yep.
He didn't like what some of the people were writing about him. He made a big point about it, and I just thought, geez, I don't really want to be around this Willie Mays. And of course, that was just a small part of Mays as a person. I mean, John Shea has brought the man so much to life, but I didn't connect with Willie anywhere near the way John did. But I love this, going in the clubhouse and seeing him in there, talking ball. I just figured, I don't belong in there, but look at this scene. There's Murph's in there and McCovey and anybody, all these old guys would go in there and Mays would be holding court, and he loved to talk, and anything he said you paid attention to.
Yeah, I love being in there. He was nice enough to allow me to be in Murph's office, and Murph always brought me in. And I really had a good relationship with Willie. And to what you just said, I'd walk in, and I never knew who would be in there. Because I don't care who came to the park, they wanted to see Willie. Mm-hmm. That was the deal. And he loved it. And he would sit there and, he'd just talk, and you never knew what he was going to say. And I walk in one day, and there's Steph Curry and his dad, Del Curry. And, and they can't even believe that they are in the same room with Willie Mays. I
think about the comparisons to, we'll say, Bill Russell or Jim Brown, athletes who were just, they talk about rising above and being the all-time greatest. Russell was extremely reclusive and put off the fans. He was disturbed by the racial climate in Boston and everything else, but he wouldn't even sign autographs. I mean, he completely stayed to himself. And Jim Brown kept things pretty tight, too. But Mays, like you say, got bigger in his baseball afterlife, got more popular, got more well-known, and had people, looking him up, looking up the films and the documentation. And once you started doing that, you don't stop. We've got the Chronicle has a book coming out later this year. And what I did was I read every book I could find on Mays. There must have been 8 or 10 of them, and watched every bit of footage I could, and just documented his great moments all the way from Birmingham to the Mets. And it was really a satisfying experience. But you learn things. It's just like you learn things about like his throwing arm was just, people felt it was like a pitch coming in from 60 feet. The catch, he would knock catchers a couple feet backwards sometimes with his throws, and there's just so much to him, and that's the beauty of it, because even you and me, we're going to still be learning things about Mays as life goes on for us. So it's a wonderful thing.
Did you write in the book? Is that are you in there?
As I say, all my research is in the book.
Fabulous! Wonderful! Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, that's worth. Oh, come on! Now I'm going to get it. Very good. Oh,
it's not so much me trying to write Mays, but just charting what he did. A lot of it, what it meant, and what people said about him. I just wanted to get all those things in there, and there's some things that I think they've all been told. Obviously, they've been told one way or another by the historians, but I just tried to get them all in one place. And I thought it would be a nice compliment to John Shea's book, where he got Mays' perspective on all this stuff, and so it's going to be a good package.
Oh, fab! No one. Look, and I'll tell you, you know how I feel. Nobody does this like you do it. Oh, that's fabulous. Oh, I'm very happy to hear it. I'll get it for sure now. I can't wait to read it. Yeah, everything you do is from the heart and the passion of baseball. Really good. Taking back a little bit here about going into Murph's office, I think maybe the biggest surprise I ever had, I walked in and Kareem was in there. and he was wearing his little Dodger hat with the B on it. The Brooklyn Dodger hat, and talking to Willie, and that to me that got my attention. Let's put it that way.
No, yeah, I mean, like anybody could be. The Pope would be in there talking double play balls. What is this sacrifice fly you talk about here? No, it was wonderful, and one thing I mentioned in the column was that I didn't remember it so much from the Times, but I mean, he'd be on the Ed Sullivan Show, and here comes Mays, and everything's great, God, there he is, and for a black man in those days to be on primetime television, nobody else was doing that stuff, but there's Sinatra standing next to him, beaming and just feeling stoked just to be around the man, and here he is, and by God, he's a bit of a showman off the field too. He's great company. He's obviously a great-looking guy and carries himself as the star that he is, and it's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's terrific. I was thinking of when I first saw him play live. Now, I'm in Florida in the 60s, so, if we ever got a game, it was 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, that it would start, on the East Coast. And maybe saw him play a few times, and, of course, saw him play in the All-Star game. But, you didn't have that constant coverage of a player. And I remember the first time I saw him play, it was 1971, and I had come out to California. And it was just my first time really in California, just to get a feel for it. And I was going to have the coast-to-coast law office. And I remember the Florida bar and the California bar, and I had to see what California was like.
Yeah.
And I went to Candlestick for a game, and, of course, I was freezing. I couldn't believe it. But the one thing I do remember, and it was like August of 71, was watching him warm up. And I guess it's probably the only time I ever saw him play live, other than being 10 years old in Brooklyn, watching him at Ebbets Field against the Dodgers. But the thing I remember, the way he warmed up, Bruce, he warmed up different than the way he threw the ball. I said, wow. And I have it etched in my memory. The way he threw the ball, I said, that's Willie Mays, and I never forgot it.
That's so great. And one thing that I had, and all of us in Southern California had, was the descriptions by Vince Scully, because most of what we got was on radio. We did get the games from Candlestick, which was great, but anything having to do with Mays and Aaron and Clemente and all the great players. Vince Scully was so into those guys. He's like, Miller and Krukow and Dave Fleming. They don't. When a great player does something, these guys, it's not like they're at the funeral home. Seriously, when you watch these games from around the country and something great happens to the other team, like, it's fine. But Vince Scully would go on and on about the magnificence of this man, Willie Mays, especially in '58, because he's talking to people who just got Major League Baseball in L.A., and the Giants come to town, man, you have to see this guy.
Yeah, fabulous. My good friend Michael Gaines, who we went to so many games together, saw him play in the Polo Grounds. And anyone who has seen him play, it's special. It's like no other player. Maybe Koufax. If you saw Koufax pitch, maybe you remember that, or Marichal.
Many times, yeah. He's in that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Isn't Willie's right there? Willie is right on the top of all that. And the other thing I learned on the trip, and going to the 16th Street Baptist Church and meeting one of the survivors of the bombing that killed the 4 little girls, and just being part of Birmingham and walking around and understanding the racism that took place, still goes on today, believe me. But went on then, and Reggie explained it very well.
Yeah, that was huge. That was a big moment in the telecast.
Yeah,
unexpected.
Look, that's the way life was. Reggie didn't make this stuff up. That was Birmingham in those days, and Bull Connor and everything else. And I thought about Willie.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, please.
No, I was just going to say, Alex Rodriguez asked the right question, and Reggie paused for a moment. Then he went into talking about how it was. He goes, I would have, the way I was, I just wanted to fight everybody who slighted me. Without guys like Raleigh Fingers and Rudy and Dave Duncan, interestingly, those young A's were in Birmingham coming up through the minors.
Right.
He goes, I'd be hanging from an oak tree. And he wasn't kidding. They would have lynched him.
No, Charlie Finley owned the ball club, and he took charge of it and said, look, if you're not going to allow my team in here, we'll go somewhere else. And John McNamara was the manager. And those are true stories. Those are true stories. And, walking around and realizing what Birmingham was like, and here's Willie, just the kid. And where does he go? New York City.
Wow.
Come on. I mean, he didn't get signed and end up in, Kansas City or Pittsburgh or Detroit. Yeah. He's in Broadway with Leo. And what does he gravitate to? Kids and stickball and buying ice cream and just being the say-hey kid. And,
I'm sure he was it's so wonderful. I'm sure he was relieved, and it was very helpful to him that when he got to New York, they had Monty Urban and Hank Thompson, and they had a couple of black guys on the team. Yeah. Which was a great thing for Mays. In those days, stuff like that really mattered. He got some guys to talk to right away. And, hell, it'd be several years before some of the teams had any black players. They stuck to their idiotic quotas and racist, nonsense. But the New York Giants, they stood for progress, and Mays, of course, at the forefront.
Yeah, but being at Birmingham showed me in very, very clear terms what life probably was like for him, and coming up to the Big Apple, so to speak, and here's just this kid, he's just a kid, and he always was a kid, and that's always the way he played ball. He was there to play ball, and he would tell me the story, and the story in Hagerstown, in the Eastern League when he played for Trenton. Hagerstown's in Maryland, and it was segregated, and he would have to stay in a separate motel. And this is 1950, so Willie's only 19 years old at this point, and now he's alone. He's on the road. It's not just a weekend. Yeah. So he's in the Eastern League, and he'd be all alone in this motel, and his teammates, his white teammates, would sneak into the motel where Willie was in through the window, and spend the night with him. And spend the night with him so he wouldn't be alone. And then before sunrise, they would sneak out and go back to their motel, and that's what they did for him. And that's amazing to me.
No, that's so great. It's so great, Marty, that you were in Birmingham, and not just the game itself in the park, but just to get the feel of the city. Yeah. And like you say, you still see evidence of racism. Whatever it might be, it's not as radical as it was then, but it still exists. It's still what the black man faces in America, and to think about what Mays went through, all those guys back then, it's pretty sobering.
Yeah, and then to have the game in Birmingham, of course, and then to bring back the living Negro League players, and there were so many of them that were there, and I wish I would have known their stories and who they played for, and what they did and all that, and of course there was just too many to do that, I'm sure, on TV and everyone else, but I wish they would have put out a book of each one of them, so we would have known their stories. I would have liked that, but they did a nice job in presenting everything. I will tell you that.
I'd like to think that somebody went to Birmingham for the specific purpose of talking to all those guys. Maybe it wouldn't be in a newspaper, maybe he's working on a book, but to hear the stories of the living Negro Leaguers would be a hell of a book. I just like to think somebody's working on that right now.
Yeah, and of course the living players played after 1948, 1950, because the Negro Leagues existed well into the 50s. Everyone thinks they kind of ended once Jackie Robinson went to the big leagues or after 1948, but no, the Indianapolis Clowns played. Hank Aaron played there, and a lot of the players who are living are ones who played post 1948. You don't find many that were there. Bill Greason is 99, and he pitched in 1948 for the Barons against the Monarchs, and then the Homestead Grays. He won Game 3 of the World Series against the great Homestead Grays, and he's 99. So there weren't many who played in the pre-1948 time. So those are the ones I'd like to hear from.
Boy, yeah, no kidding. I mean, the Negro Leagues were I guess doomed in a sense because so many of their great stars were playing where they should have been playing all along. And I'm sure it was a hell of a show, but it's just, when it's like if a Broadway show closes down and there's 4 headliners in the show and then all of a sudden they're not there, It's just not the attraction that it was. That's just a natural way of things.
Yeah, they tried, but it did not last. But a lot of the players who were there were players who played post 1948, so it would have been interesting to hear their stories of what life was like. So yeah, I hope someone did do a book on that. But yeah, it was quite a moment, I must say, and seeing Willie's son Michael was very important for me to sit down and talk with him, and he's just been overwrought just with everything that's happened this week and trying to handle everything. And he did a nice thing before the game when he got out there.
Yeah.
And said he's watching you.
Do that.
Yeah, he's watching you. Believe me, if you yell and scream, he'll be with you. And it was very, very, very important that he did that. I like that.
Yeah, and that's triggered a wonderful standing ovation. He was absolutely the person to do that. I thought the spirit of the event, it came right through the television set. Quite often, the setting, Bob Melvin said a lot of this park is exactly the way I remember it from way, way back. Yeah, I would have enjoyed seeing no advertising, but that's just not realistic today. You got a couple of betting sites and T-Mobile out there, but it pretty much looked a lot like it did back then. And I think anybody with some imagination, and Lord knows you're among them, could feel like a little bit like how it was.
Yeah, and the scoreboard was beautiful. It was the old scoreboard.
Mm-hmm.
The balls and strikes never worked right the whole game.
Good.
The whole game. It was always 1-1. Every time I looked, it was 1-1. Never worked right the whole game. But I saw CeCe Sabathia there, and Jimmy Rollins was there, and LaTroy Hawkins, and a lot of the former players, the African American players were there. That was really good too. I thought that was nice. I don't know, the whole atmosphere, Bruce. It was surreal in a way. It was almost something that. I said this, it was almost like being at a world, that feeling at a World Series or playoff game when you're on the field before the game.
Sure.
Something special's going on. It was that kind of feeling. The game actually, who cares?
Right.
It was everything else. It was the beginning of a Super Bowl. There was those moments of anticipation that were palpable. Let's use that word.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. I don't think anything about the game is going to be remembered. Ramos will always remember hitting a home run and thinking about Mays, and I hope Yaz didn't hurt himself too badly, and little stuff like that. But the game was incidental, and it was well played. It went down to the wire, and that's kind of all you expect. But it was all about before and after, and way back, and the people are going to, I think, in their different ways, are going to launch their own personal exploration of the Negro Leagues, whatever it might be. There's so much to be learned. Oh my goodness.
Yep, and they were there because baseball wouldn't let them play, and now baseball honors them. So it came a little bit of full circle. And the last thing I will say, it was hot. I want to tell you something. And it was hot. It was 90 degrees and 90 degrees humidity. And believe me, Arizona, it's like a microwave, but we can deal with it. This place, I'm sorry. I don't know how they played there.
Yeah, I know. And there's another thing that all those guys went through. I mean, that's a playing a hard 9 innings in that kind of heat in a wild game, or just do anything, going to the grocery store, whatever it is. We're so lucky. Of course, where I am, it never gets over 60 degrees, but out here on the coast of California. But geez, it's just that's something. And every ball player in the big leagues too went through St. Louis and Cincinnati. It's just a million degrees and really oppressive heat. But you got a little taste of that too.
No, come on, it was ridiculous. And the other thing I'll say, they didn't have vendors selling stuff in the stands. It was nice. You just sat. You just watched the game. And
did they? I didn't seem like they were playing a lot of nonsense during the action, a lot of sound effects and
no.
Yeah, which was that's another thing. Yeah.
No, they had
even Dodger Stadium and Yankee Stadium, torment you with stuff like that, which is such a sacrilege.
No, you didn't have that feeling at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was something. It was well done. Baseball did a good job. The Giants did a great job. I mean, it was Larry Baer and Rachel Haidt and Jack Baer, the whole front office, and Russ Stanley and Shane Adom. I mean, they could not have made it better for everyone who was there. It was really
those
cool.
are the names. I mean, they do these things so well, and you knew they'd step up in a huge way, and I'm sure they'll continue to, as from where we're going to see here in the coming days.
Yeah, and this one had Mario Alioto's fingerprints on it too.
Oh, sure.
Who understood how to do these things. So, very successful. All right, good. I've been looking forward to having you on, and I know we could talk tomorrow. We'll talk more about baseball. And we'll do that. We'll talk about J.D. Martinez, who's going nuts for the Mets. We'll do that tomorrow.
Absolutely. Hit one to right.
Yeah, come on. The Mets are on fire. This is going to be a crazy summer. All right, we'll talk tomorrow, Bruce. Thanks, and we'll talk.
Great.
Then.
Thank you, Marty.
All right, be well. All right, that is Bruce Jenkins. More coming up. If you want to call in, I think I mentioned 808 KNBR. If you feel like it, it's fine. If not, we've got some stuff to do when we come back right after this.
Talking baseball with Marty Laurie on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
It's been a pleasure working with Rick Robin this year. Rick Robin, ROBBEN, NapaConstruction.com. Rick, the last time you were on with us, you told us about kitchen and bath remodeling, but there's a lot more going on up in your area.
Yes, there is. ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, which are nose-to-drain units. We can do your existing garage, attached garage, even building a new unit in the back. And so what we do is come out, bring our architect out there. Such a great thing. No sewer hookup fees, no water hookup fees. So that's what we do.
Rick, how does one start the process with you? How does one get in touch with you?
You call Tammy, 707-332-7575, 7 days a week.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com. Rick, the thing I like about this, no problem for me. You come out with the plans, the permits, everything is in-house, no fees, and you get a new unit that you can rent out and get money back on your investment right away. I like it, Rick.
Thanks, Marty. Love talking to you.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com.
orange and black family, the godfather of Giants baseball now continues. This is Talkin' Baseball with Marty Laurie on KNBR, the sports leader.
Hey Giants fans, this is Sandra G. You're listening to KNBR 680 and 104.5. I'm in the dugout here at Rickwood Field with Jordan Hicks. Jordan, thanks so much for taking some time to chat with us today.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, and so you guys have kind of been on a whirlwind getting ready for this Rickwood game. How does it feel to finally be here and be sitting in the dugout?
Yeah, I mean, we were just in Chicago. We kind of try to take every game one day at a time, but now that we're finally here, it's good to fully embrace it, and I can feel the history, just walking around. I think my coolest thing so far was probably the bus outside that they used to travel on, so I'm having a good time.
Yeah, they've got a Birmingham Black Barons, the barnstorming bus outside. So we're sitting at Rickwood Field where Willie Mays used to play, and this game has taken on much more significance with the news of Willie's passing. What can you say about Willie as a player and as a man?
Yeah, I mean, I never got to meet him, unfortunately, but from what I've heard and what I've seen, just impeccable human being, just overall. One of the greatest baseball players ever play. This is his first stadium, I think, and also what I hear about him and how great of a human being he was. Like, that's what's even more impressive. Is like you were that good, but you're also one of the greatest people to walk earth. So I think that's a pretty special thing, and hopefully we just all remember him in a good way and a positive way.
So many people from San Francisco may have not seen Willie Mays play, but maybe their father, their grandfather, their mom, their grandma. Do you have any ties like that to Willie Mays, or what are the stories that you heard of him growing up?
I mean, I think my dad, his dad, probably watched Willie more than my dad did, but I mean, I've heard about him. Like, he was outstanding. He could do everything on the baseball field, and also just being a good human. He was a great person. I hope his family's in a good place.
What are you hoping to leave Rickwood Field with this experience?
I mean, I'm not getting the pitch, so maybe just a win, and being a part of history.
Yeah. This has been Jordan Hicks here. We're in the dugout at Rickwood Field. Sandra G. Sending it back to KNBR 680 for more Talkin' Baseball.
Boy, nice job, Sandra. Nice job. You hear the music in the background. That's what it was like. We had music going on all the time, pregame. Boy, good job, Sandra. She really worked hard. It was great that she could be at Rickwood Field as well. And Jordan Hicks pitches today, and he said it very well. It was a big deal. And seeing the bus, yes, the Birmingham Black Baron bus was out in front. And that was how they traveled. That was good. Good, Jordan. I like that. Hey, I want to mention something about Georgie Brothers. It's one of my favorite sponsors for many years, Rob Georgie and the whole family. They have the great 50,000 square foot showroom in South San Francisco, and they have stressless chairs. All right, now stressless chairs. This is sectional sofas, love seats, reclining chairs. And they have the great stressless chair and ottoman that I have right here in the house. Believe me, I like it. It's the spot I sit in the house. That's the deal. All right, so starting, they have a new promotion coming up, and I wanted to say and talk about it this morning. Starting June 21st and running all the way until August 5th, there's a new stressless promotion. It's on-the-spot summer savings. It's very exciting. You can receive an instant rebate. Believe me, you get $100 back for every $1,000 you spend, so the 10% savings is a lot. So visit the showroom, and you can meet with Michael Passer. Rich is his dad. Michael Passer and others there. They're non-commissioned. It's very easy to deal with them, but they have 50,000 square foot showroom. They have all sorts of furniture things. My family's bought it for years, and I always said Evan has a new house, and I said, Ev, you go to Georgie Brothers when you need something. Aaron as well, and Bonnie too. So it's Georgie Brothers Furniture. They're in South City. Free parking since 1933. Rob Georgie is the best. Online, it's Georgie, Giorgi, Brothers. It's BROS, Giorgi, BROS.com. And if you think about it, tell them that I sent you so they know that the ad does some good. But the stressless chairs, this is a good promotion. You'll enjoy it. So very happy to do that for them. They've made my show possible, so I thank them for that. All right, so as I told Raph, 808 KNBR, if you feel like calling in. Kerry's coming up next with our Giants warm-up. But Don in Hawaii. Don, you were at Rickwood, and now you're back. Tell us your thoughts about it, Don. Good morning.
Hey, Marty. No, not Hawaii. Aulani, down by Yosemite.
All right. Tell Raph. Because I said to Raph, God, he's up pretty early in Hawaii. All right. Very good.
Not
got
quite.
It. All right.
My son and I got back last night. We were in Rickwood. We had a wonderful time. We got in Tuesday midday, I guess. It was an absolutely spectacular affair. I got to give a shout out to MLB. I'm not real keen about a lot of the things they do, but they did this one up right, without a doubt. You mentioned the history involved, and that's what struck us the most. We got to see the 16th Street Church also. We got to walk the path of the kids as they went from the Board of Education to the high school, and all of the posts that are along the way of that. It was absolutely wonderful. With regard to Willie himself, everybody has said so much more than I ever could, but did you get out to the parking lot where they unveiled the huge mural where they did a lot of the pregame broadcasting from? Did you get to that parking lot? See that?
Well, I'm not sure if that's the one you're talking about, but I did see a couple of murals that were in Willie's honor. Yes, amazing.
This one is on. Yes, it was.
This was near the park. It was the one that I saw.
Okay, now this one was kind of nearer the museum, but we got there. We were with a group of 35 people in a bus. We pulled up. They had just barely setting up for the broadcast of it, and we're all looking at it as all of Willie's major dates and things like that. And one guy says, they've got his MVP wrong. They had 56 instead of 65. So they had to paint that over before they started the broadcast and everything. So just one of those goofy things. But I want to end with this, Marty. It just seems like karma, if you will. Willie Mays died June 18th. 6 and 18 equal 24.
I know. Yeah, Sandra pointed that one out to us Wednesday. 6 plus 18. Yeah, I'm telling you, the guy had style. He was a showman.
Kidding.
He figured it out.
You go out with a flair. That's what we all want to do.
Yeah, he was the best. He was the best. Thanks. I appreciate the call. Very good.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Don. All right, 808 KNBR if you wanted. We haven't done this in a while, but it's nice to be able to do it. Eric in Berkeley. Eric, 808 KNBR, you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Glad to be back. It was quite a trip. It really was. It was something. I was hesitant to do it, but Larry Bear convinced me, and he said, you got to go, and I'm very happy that I went, and he made it possible.
Yeah, it was very moving. I'm going to change the subject just slightly to the current state of affairs with the Giants.
Go ahead.
And I'm a long-time Giants man. I listened to their first game here on the West Coast. But I'm very concerned about these 6 games coming up because I don't think they just have to break even here. If they lose more than that, I think the season could be gone because it's going to be hard to catch up, and you're going to burn out the relief pitchers' arms. So maybe you could talk me off the window ledge here.
No, 2 things. One, the relief pitching, I'm with you 100% on that. And I saw it in June. They've played 17 games, I think, or 18 games, or 7-11 or something like that. And they've only had 6 quality starts. That's not enough. You're using the bullpen too much. And with Hicks today, be more of the same. This is going to be a second-half team. And the important thing to remember is, and I looked at this today, for hitting in the National League, the last 4 teams, basically, St. Louis, Washington, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and the Cubs. And those are the teams kind of in contention with the Giants for this wild card spot. Nobody's hitting. And the Giants can hit a little bit, but the Giants can pitch. And the second half, and they're going to rely on Snell, Ray, and Cobb to pick them up. And if they can get that done, this is going to be a second-half race. That's the way I see it. So everyone's got 40 losses, 38 losses, 37, 36, 39. Everyone's in that area. So do not worry. It's not time to worry yet. Believe me. I don't care what happens in the next 2 weeks. Not yet. After the All-Star break, that's when they have to make their move. This is like a horse race. And just hold your own now, and it's like the Belmont. And then all of a sudden, you got to take off. So that's my take on it. They will be a second-half team, but the players who I mentioned better do it in the second half, because none of these other teams are going to blow anybody away. And look at San Diego, up and down, up and down. Tatis got hurt again last night. Arizona's finally starting to win a little bit, but they've had trouble all year. And then the teams I just mentioned, they're not going to run away from anybody. So I think the Giants are very much in it, but it's a second-half team, and we're not there yet.
Just how far under 500 do you think they could slip and still be viable to come back?
Well, that's a good point. You don't like
now.
I know. You go 10 under, you're going to have to really get hot. I like this. 4 or 5 under is about as far as I want to go, because 4 or 5 under, one good week, 1 6-game winning streak, and now you're back. You go 10 under, and you're going to need 2 good winning streaks to do it, and that's not always so simple. So I'd say somewhere between 5 and 10, but you don't want to be in double figures. You get in double figures, it's real trouble. So they're 4 under now. You want to kind of keep it around this number, and they should do well against the Cubs. You hope they can split these couple of games in St. Louis, and then, as you say, in that tough stretch, kind of hold your own, not get killed, and then get ready for the second half, and I think that's where we're going.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Marty.
All right. Are you off the ledge? Are you off the ledge?
Well, I'm on a one. I have a one-story house, so it was never that dangerous to begin with.
Okay. All right. Be well. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Raph, it's the old days, huh? Raph, you there?
Yeah, Marty, it's like, Saturday Night Live,
Right, it's the old days. All right.
We got to talk down people from the ledge.
Yeah, that's right. I love it. Come on, we're the psychiatrist again. This is good. All right. 808 KNBR. We're going to take another break. If you want to jump in, fine. Carrie's coming up next very soon. But we've got more coming up right here in the Sports Leader.
Talking baseball with Marty Lurie on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
Fans, it's great to have you back with us as we're joined by Grant Power. He is the president and CEO of Nations. Grant, I love to talk about the menu at Nations, especially this time of year. What's going on?
Well, just as spring brings real baseball games, spring brings the strawberry season at Nations. And we do not believe in frozen strawberries, so we only have them during the spring, summer, and early fall months when we can get them fresh from Southern California. That time's arrived. And so strawberry tart, strawberry cheesecake becomes our best-selling pie during this time of year. Strawberry pancake, strawberry French toast.
How about breakfast at Nations? We talk about that a lot.
For 27 of our locations, any time of day, I love getting breakfast at night. We can mix and match, sub, if you don't want the hash browns with toast, we'll throw in the French toast or the pancake. Your choice of meat with the breakfast, again, the wild salmon goes wonderful with the eggs, but we got the bacon, sausage, linguiça, you name it. You can't really experience the Nations dining experience if you haven't tried the breakfast at least once.
I love talking about Nations. Grant, great to have you with us. Have a good day. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Marty.
Just a quick note about the rooftop restaurant at the Via Hotel, the Hotel Via across the street from the park. They do a wide variety of events on the rooftop, from weddings and birthdays to corporate retreats and special events, holiday events, and any other special occasion you can think of. With stunning 360 views of the skyline, Bay Bridge, East Bay, and of course Oracle Park, the rooftop at Via is truly one of the most unique event venues in San Francisco.
You've seen the catch so many times on TV, and it's the greatest catch ever in the history of the World Series. And when you see it on TV and you look at it, does it look any different to you? Does it look easier?
I didn't see it that way, no. I was a guy that when the ball went up, I should catch it very quickly. I didn't worry about all the details that people used to tell me about. I just, would catch the ball, get it back in the infield very quickly. Alvin Dodd was there. Eddie Stanky was there second. So I just feel that when I catch the ball, get rid of it. It wasn't anything that I could do with the ball in the outfield, but try to get it back into the infield.
Well, as Patrick said, Pecan said to me, he said when he sees the play and you tap the glove, he knows you had it.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, if I tap the glove, I'm pretty close. I can catch the ball. And runners began to understand that, and they never would run. So I threw out, I think in 54, I think I threw out 22 or either 51, 22. But then later on in the year, I only threw out 13 the next year because nobody ran.
Yeah.
So I was okay.
Giants fans, there's no better way to set the game day table than talking baseball with Marty Laurie. Marty keeps rolling on KNBR, the sports leader.
Well, Raph, thank you so much for playing that. I love it. I love it. I could listen to it all day long. I listen to it, and I cannot believe that me, Marty Laurie, the kid from Brooklyn, who grew up watching Willie once in a while at Ebbets Field, got to be the guy to interview him and have him on our show. And he loved Pecan, and we had him out there at the patio. Just to listen to that, to listen to his voice, how alive it is, and what an honor. What an honor for all of us to be in the presence of Willie Mays, and just to hear him describe this stuff. And I used to say to him, Willie, you got to do more. You got to do more in public. Fans should hear these kind of stories. So he would come out to the public house. He did it a couple of times with us, and just to hear his voice like that, and for me to do 6 or 7 shows with him in front of 1,000 people at Tommy Bahama or in Atlanta at Coca-Cola, where we flew back to do a show. What an honor for me to be there. And Raph, just to hear his voice again, wow, that one got me. I haven't heard his voice as clearly as that since he passed, and that was almost my moment to hear it, Raph. Very nice. Thank you so much for doing that. Wow. Got a nice text from Sam Sides today. Met him at Rickwood Field. He saved us. I'm telling you, the humidity was so hot. I said, this is trouble. And went up into the press box, and he was one of the scorekeepers or helping with the broadcast on Tuesday night, and got us water and all this kind of stuff, and talked a lot with him. And he just sent me a text from Birmingham. The people in Birmingham were great. They couldn't have been nicer. Couldn't have been nicer. Walking in that park on Wednesday, which was Juneteenth, and talking to different people in the park about Alabama and about the politics and about Juneteenth. That was very special for me. Those statues are amazing in the park, depicting everything that went on in Birmingham in the 60s, really. And, of course, across the country today, Juneteenth is still being celebrated, especially in Texas, which is what Juneteenth is all about. And the Texas governor finally let everyone know, by the way, the Civil War is over, the Emancipation Proclamation's happened, and everyone's free. They finally told him that, and that was on June 19th, about 4 years after the Civil War. So that is going on today. All right, that's everything I got to say. Carrie Crowley, good morning. Wow, what a show for me today. How are you?
Oh, doing well, Marty. What a show indeed. Listening back to you and the clips this week, I have to say, we've been doing this for 7-8 years together now, and this week has maybe been the greatest privilege I've had, talking Willie Mays at KNBR and listening to all the old clips, and obviously, honoring and celebrating Willie's life and all that he achieved. And I think it's important to point out that folks like you and folks like John Shea, who really drew these stories out of Willie Mays and got him to open up publicly in his post-career playing days, I think it was so important to the younger generations understanding the magnitude of Mays' impact on not just baseball, not just sports, but American society. So thank you. Thank you for all the time you spent interviewing him. Thanks to John for 24 in the book that he wrote about Willie. Amazing. I mean, it's just, we are so lucky to have these stories passed down, because not every player had that, and only a few, had the type of impact that Willie had across all of American sports. And, we are so fortunate to have a window into his life and his upbringing. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, Pop did too. Pop had him on NBC with John, and we were fortunate to have those moments with him. And this one got me, Raph. I hadn't heard Willie's voice so clearly as that, with me talking with him and having him describe. He was so alive. My God, that almost was my moment, my grieving moment. To hear that, to hear his voice so alive, because everything else I've been written about, and I've been talking about it, but boy, he just came alive for me right there in a very special way. That was pretty good. You talked to FX and Nancy Hayden Crowley about Willie. What did they have to say about it?
Are you kidding, Marty? I mean, the reason I fell in love with baseball as a kid is because my grandfather on my, Nancy's side, the Hayden side of the family, took her out to Candlestick Park to watch Willie as a child. And it's how she fell in love with baseball, watching Willie Mays and Willie McCovey and Juan Marichal out at Candlestick Park. I mean, you talk about one of the biggest Willie Mays fans. He was a hero to the entire side of that family. And of course, FX has shared the stories of Willie Mays and, going out to Kezar to watch the 49ers growing up, and all the different stories that have really built my San Francisco sports fan and my appreciation for everyone who came before us, who made the Bay Area sports scene what it was. And, there's no appreciation of the current state of Bay Area sports without understanding the past and what made the Bay Area what it is. And Willie Mays is just the foundational figure in all of it. The way that he came over in 1958 to San Francisco that, didn't quite know what it was getting in Major League Baseball. And Willie, he did such an incredible job captivating the hearts and minds of everyone. And I'm so fortunate that my parents have passed along those memories to me, and so indebted. And I thought about that a lot this week. I've been on the phone with them a lot this week, and just really, really grateful. And I know that, you pass along stories to Evan and the whole family, and it's so special because I said this during some of my shows. No athlete has cut across generations quite like Willie has. I really believe that. No athlete has had the same type of impact with an 8 or 10-year-old who's fallen in love with the game today and a 90-year-old who remembers watching him at the Polo Grounds. It's so true that he has cut across generations and made people fall in love with his style of play even 50 years after he last took the field.
Yeah, it's incredible. That's the point that I brought up this week. People haven't seen him play since 1973, but he became bigger. The story became bigger as the years went on. He became more important. Isn't that something?
Yeah, it's amazing. And also, I mean, we forget that at that time, baseball was America's biggest sport. I mean, baseball was everything to the country when Willie was playing, and Willie was everything to baseball, too. I mean, you had to be so consistently good every single time you took the field because there was no Sports Center. There was no every game televised. There was no MLB TV like we had today where you can flip on a game and all of a sudden you're watching Pirates and Orioles interleague in the middle of June. I mean, you just couldn't do it. And Willie had to be that good every single day. He was the standard setter for 2 decades across Major League Baseball. It's mind-boggling to think about.
Boy, just listening to that clip, and I was thinking of, we had a lot of serious moments. He explained to me about his family and about his mother had remarried. And, of course, now there was a stepfather involved. And the stepfather tried to discipline Willie. And his mother stepped in and said, no. You never say anything to this young man. And she protected him, and the aunts protected him. And just to hear his voice telling those stories, I forget. We had so many moments of talking about Hagerstown and the teammates coming in, getting the call to come up to the Giants, and him saying, "I'm not ready. I'm not ready." And Leo said, "What are you hitting?" 477. He says, "Get up here. You're ready." And, Willie crying in his locker and explaining that stuff. And, I had so many times with him when he really did explain his career. And then there were the moments that I would say to him, "Look, I grew up in Florida. I didn't see you play that often. Were you any good?" And of course he would start laughing, at that. And as I said to Bruce, you'd go in Murph's office and there's Kareem sitting there, talking to him. So, in life, I like to think I've done some things and seen some people and done some things. I don't think there's anything as equal to getting to know Willie Mays and having that relationship with him and just seeing him have that relationship with the Bay Area and knowing that I was part of it with him. And how lucky can you be, really? I mean,
do you remember the first time that you and Willie had a long conversation?
Boy, that's a good question. Yes, I probably do, and it was at Scottsdale. And you remember you were there enough times when he would come in.
That's where you and John introduced me to Willie.
Yeah, and look, I brought Rob Georgie in from Georgie Brothers to see Willie, Mark Pearsall and Mike Garrison from Truett and White and Marvin Windows. Willie got it. Willie understood. You'd bring them in and he'd go, "Murph, give me a ball." And he'd sign the ball for him. He'd bring Aaron in, and Aaron would shake hands with him, and he teased everybody. "Is that your best handshake?" And Aaron would shake his hand again, and all that stuff. But I think sitting at that table with him, probably that was the first conversation I really had. And look, and as I tell people, sometimes it's good to be old, and I knew enough about his career and about the teams that he played against and the players he played against, so I could say to him, "What about facing this pitcher? What was it like doing that?" And we just got on that way. So I would think spring training, Scottsdale, in the clubhouse, that's probably it. And I tell the story, he was always testing me with stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The Cincinnati Reds story. We're talking about the great home run hitters in 1956 and the great teams and how that all-star team in 1957. Cincinnati stuffed the ballot box, and they had like 6 Reds starting. And, of course, they stepped in and, put Hank Aaron on and Musial and some other people on. But he would say, yeah, come on, can you name the 56 Reds? And I'd go, well, Ted Kluszewski at first, and Johnny Temple at second, Roy McMillan at short, and Ed Bailey caught, and Wally Post in right, and Gus Bell in center, and, of course, Frank Robinson in left. And he'd go, yeah, who played third? And I'd look at him, and I'd say, Ray Jablonski. And he would say, all right, you got it. And, of course, it was that kind of stuff. And I don't know. You talk about priceless, you just can't script it. But the guy was cool. He was cool. I saw Jimmy Rollins in Birmingham. And,
oh, wow.
Jimmy, I said, Jimmy, the last time I saw you, you and me and Willie were talking. And that Jimmy Rollins would always come over to the table to talk to Willie. Jimmy Rollins loved talking to Willie.
Yeah.
Angel Pagan loved talking to Willie. Denard Spann couldn't talk to him enough. He loved being part of it. And the thing that amazed me with Willie was he would tell them things to do. I said, how can he do this? He can't see. How's he doing this? But he was right. The guy was the most incredible baseball player and human being that I've ever met in my life. To deal with the challenges, his sight was challenged. And then, look, for a long, many years, his sight was challenged. He could see, some lights and things like that, but, very difficult. You never knew it. You never knew it. His voice, his recollections, it never, ever changed. Ever. He was the strongest man I've ever met in my life. And I hadn't thought about saying these things to you until you just asked me. That's how strong he was as a human being, and I learned from that. He had things he had to overcome. And, as I always say, he came from Alabama. He was a nice kid. He got his high school diploma. He wanted to go. He wanted to get his diploma. He didn't play that night. He played the next night and hit a 3-run homer for the, for the Black Barons. That's what he did. He was a nice kid. And, he was offended when Don Newcomb, I told you the story, would knock him down all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd say to Campy, come on, I'm black. What's Nuke doing? Campy said he could care less. He's going to knock you on your ass. That's what he would say to him. And then Campy would throw dirt in Willie's shoes to drive him crazy. That kind of stuff. And just to know the kind of kid he was, coming from Alabama, in the racism of Alabama, and he ends up in New York. And where does he end up? He ends up in Harlem playing stickball with the kids and buying ice cream. That's the Willie Mays that came to New York. And getting to know that, I'm glad we could all know that. And this game in Rickwood brought it back. And it put the spotlight on the Negro Leagues and these men who worked so hard to play baseball. And they were as good as anybody. And Bob Feller used to, Bob Feller wasn't the easiest guy to get along with. And he'd say, well, they'd beat us and we'd beat them. That's the way he would talk. And they played a lot of barnstorming games together after the season. And look at the winter leagues and all around the summer and the winter in all the different countries. And these African-American players would play there to make some money. And they excelled. They were fabulous there. And that's the Willie Mays that we got to know, that grew up with that. So that's what I remember about him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this week in Birmingham was so special because I've had the opportunity, Marty, to hear your stories on the air of how Piper Davis helped shape Willie Mays, the young Willie Mays at 16, 17, 18 years old, and the Reverend Bill Greason and his impact on Willie's career with the Birmingham Black Barons. And this week, Bob Kendrick, who I know that you're close with, you've had on your show dozens of times. Listening to Bob Kendrick on the broadcast drive those points home to a national audience that these are the men who helped raise Willie Mays on the field in Birmingham. That was so special to hear, because thinking about Piper Davis and everyone who got to understand what Piper Davis meant to Willie's career, and Bill Greason and the interview that he did on national TV, and then asking, did that help? Did that help to Ken Rose? I mean, come on. Did that help? Are you kidding me? That was maybe the most special moment I've seen in a broadcast through the last few years. It was incredible, and you got to live it in person this week in Birmingham.
Yeah, it was surreal. I'm telling you, it was surreal. There was something about when I got to the park on Thursday, and I got to the park early, probably about 1:30, and just sat inside the main gate. And there was the old turnstiles, of walking through. And, there was the chalkboard where they're going to put the lineups up and all that. And just sitting there, I had that feeling. There was a surreal feeling about it. There was some spirit about it. And, I'm a cynical criminal lawyer. You know that. Mm-hmm. And I felt some spirituality. I really did. And I walked out to the scoreboard and had my picture taken by the scoreboard. Out in the outfield. I said, I wanted a picture of this scoreboard. And then I looked back towards the playing field from the scoreboard, which is in left center field. And you saw that roof, and you could tell how old it was. And the steel, that was the original steel that was put in there, in 1910 by Rick Woodward. Come on, it was his steel company. And he built the park. Was he going to build it out of wood? Come on, he had steel. That's what he did for a living. And he made the first steel stadium, and it's still standing up there. So it was something to be there and to feel it. And the Negro League stars, and they had their jerseys on, and it just to even see the Giants and going in the clubhouse, and they wore the special Sea Lions uniform, and the Cardinals were in the special. And I talked to Craw, too. I talked to Craw. About it, and he played third base that night.
Couldn't believe that. Brandon Crawford at third base.
Yeah, I was glad to see it. And I said to him, see, I told you one day you'd play third, because I said that to him about 5 years ago. He says, I'm not going to play third. I said, we'll see. I said, see, I told you you'd play third one day. So
You're usually right.
Generally correct, as Andy Baggerly says. I'm generally right. So it was good to see Craw. It was a great night. It was. And look, Ramos hit a 3-run homer, and he played center field, and he hit the 3-run homer. If that wasn't Willie Mays pushing that ball, I don't know what I could say. I mean, that come on, he hit a 3-run opposite field shot to tie the game up. That was a big deal.
Yeah. 24-year-old Elliot Ramos at Rickwood Field for the San Francisco Giants, playing center field 7 years after he was drafted out of Puerto Rico. I mean, what a story he's been, and what a story that night that it was for the Giants. I know that they lose, and I know that they're in the midst of this 3-game losing streak and the season not going the way they want to, but just to zoom out and think about the opportunity that the Giants got to be there, the franchise got to be there, that you were along for the ride and understanding the history of Birmingham and telling the story. I'm really grateful to everyone who's told those stories over the past few days, because it's made a huge impact on me. This is a week that I'll never forget, Marty.
Yeah, you shouldn't. No, you did a good job. Everyone, seriously, everyone at KNBR, JD had me on right away, and I was on with Pop, and you guys did a great job. Really, everyone. I must say, and I've said it about the Giants, and I've sent Jason Pearl as another one who is very much involved in all this stuff, and the Giants came through big time, and they're going to do more. And I thought KNBR stood up big time, and I was on with Vern Glenn at KPIX, and the Bay Area came through big time. We stood up big time in this week, and everyone should be very proud of what they did. And, as I said to Raph, I said, I'm coming back, 7 a.m. Saturday morning, I'm on. What am I going to do? and then I said, I'm a lawyer. I can talk. And I could talk about baseball, that. So I was happy to do the show today, and I'm really thrilled to be on with you. I love being on with you, and you've done a good job, and you're a good son, and you got married, right?
Yeah, not for a while. We still got 15 months, so
All right.
The countdown is on.
I love it, and you can rent a car on your own now, right?
I'm old enough to rent a car on my own now. Indeed,
very good.
Indeed,
very good.
Yeah. But you're right. You never forget never forget where you came from, Marty. That's what you've taught me. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, you do a good job. Everyone at KNBR really did a nice job. Everyone should be very proud of it. All right, I'm going to let you do the rest of the show because I'm done. And then back tomorrow, 7 a.m. tomorrow. And are you on tomorrow again?
I think you got Walter tomorrow.
Walter tomorrow. Okay, very good. All right, I'm glad to talk with you today. All right, have a good show and enjoy the game today. Hicks and Michaelis. Hicks has just got to keep the people off base, but he's a tough cookie with people on base. So Giants need a win today. All right, more coming up. Kerry with the warm-up coming up next right here on the Sports Leader.
Seam heads, start cracking those peanuts and spitting those seeds, because gloves are soon to be popping.
He makes a headlong dive and he makes the catch.
And bats are going to get cracking.
Blast one! Deep right field! Gone!
Welcome to KNBR's Giants Warm-Up.
Way back there! Goodbye!
On the sports leader.
All right, welcome into today's Giants warm-up. Carrie Crowley hanging out with you as the San Francisco Giants get set to take on the St. Louis Cardinals. Back from Rickwood Field out at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. The Giants have some work to do, folks. Obviously, a very heavy week as we have celebrated the life of Willie Mays and his passing announced on Tuesday when the Giants were taking on the Chicago Cubs at the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field. And then, of course, all the ceremonies, all the celebration of Willie and the Negro League's legends at Rickwood Field on Thursday as the Giants lose 6-5. But they're in the midst of a 3-game losing streak, and they really need to clean things up. This Giants team has fallen to 36-40 on the regular season, not in any way, shape, or form where any of us anticipated this team would be nearly halfway through this 2024 regular season. They're only 2 games out of that third wildcard spot in the National League. But mediocrity, as I've said many times on KNBR over the last few weeks, is pervasive in the National League. They're in a clump with about 8 other teams that are all jostling for that third wildcard spot. The Giants need to turn things around, and today they've made a few roster moves as Mike Yastrzemski hits the 10-day injured list with a very mild oblique injury. He came out of Thursday's game, of course, in the 4th inning. Austin Slater pinch hit for him at Rickwood Field, so he's got a mild oblique strain. Alex Pavlovich of NBC Sports Bay Area reporting that the Giants are hoping that Yastrzemski will be back in 10 days. Additionally, Keaton Wynn has some elbow inflammation, so Keaton Wynn is headed to the 15-day injured list, but it sounds like it might be a little longer for Keaton Wynn. So the replacements the Giants have called up today, with Yastrzemski going to the IL, Luis Matos makes his return to the Major League roster. We'll get to that in just a moment, and the significance of Matos coming back for the Giants. And David Villar set to make his season debut. He comes up from AAA Sacramento, where David Villar's played in 58 games this season, 272 average, an 839 OPS down at AAA Sacramento for the San Francisco Giants this season. He's the last guy on the 40-man roster, I think, who at least has not dealt with an injury and has not come up to the Major League level yet this season. So VR will get his first at-bats today. He is batting 8th against St. Louis right-hander Miles Mikolas, who gets the start for the Cardinals this afternoon. For the Giants, Bob Melvin's squad will set things up like this. Brett Wisely, the leadoff hitter, he will play shortstop for San Francisco today. Elliot Ramos, hottest hitter in the National League right now. He will bat second, play center field, 10 home runs on the season for Elliot Ramos to lead the San Francisco Giants. Pat Bailey coming off that 4-hit night at Rickwood. He bats third and does the catching for the Giants today. Jorge Soler, who's had a great month of June after the rough start to the regular season. He bats fourth and is the designated hitter. Matt Chapman, the third baseman, he will bat 5th. Michael Conforto in the 6th slot in the order. It's been a really rough June for Conforto, who plays left field today. Tyro Estrada will bat 7th and play second base for the Giants. VR making his regular season debut. He is playing first base and batting 8th, and Luis Matos will play right field and bat 9th at the bottom of this Giants order. And so the Giants go with Jordan Hicks on the mound today against the St. Louis Cardinals. And with Keaton Wynn hitting the injured list, with Blake Snell, Robbie Ray on the injured list, with Alex Cobb on the injured list, it is very clear that the Giants are short on starting pitching. They saw that earlier this week. You've seen far too many bullpen games already this season in the first half for the San Francisco Giants. And they're in an interesting situation with Jordan Hicks today as he takes the mound against his former ball club, the St. Louis Cardinals, where, of course, he spent 2018, 2019, didn't pitch in 2020 because he was one of the opt-out players during the pandemic, 2021, 2022, and then part of last season before he was traded to the Toronto Blue Jays, where he finished the season with a 2.63 ERA over the course of 25 appearances for Toronto. But Jordan Hicks really wanted to be a starter in St. Louis. He came up at the age of 21 years old. He was a high school draftee who really rose through that Cardinals system thanks to the electric fastball that he brought to the table. But Jordan Hicks, someone who wanted to be a starter, they tried things out for him way back in, let's take a look at his baseball reference page real quick. He started games for the St. Louis Cardinals way back in 2022, 35 games that season, 8 starts for St. Louis, where he finished that year with a career worst 4.84 ERA for St. Louis, 61 1/3 innings that season. His career high actually came back in 2018 as a rookie. That's when Hicks threw 77 2/3 innings. He faced 339 batters that season for the St. Louis Cardinals out of the bullpen. Now, why is that significant? Today, Jordan Hicks, as he takes the mound on June 22nd, he's at 76 2/3 innings, so 1 inning away from his career high. The former reliever transitioning to this Giants rotation this season has been excellent. He's faced 320 batters, just 19 shy of his career high. But the Giants are in a position where they need Jordan Hicks to about double that career high this year. I think that, he has obviously had innings limited over the course of the regular season a few times. He's been sick for a few outings. There's been a few starts where they've been very cautious. I think his season high in pitches is still under 100 in any game that he's pitched for the Giants thus far. But with the state of this Giants rotation, you've got Logan Webb at the top, who, in my opinion, should be an all-star for this San Francisco squad. Logan Webb has been consistent. He's been great, the National League leader in innings for the San Francisco Giants this season. Then you've got Jordan Hicks. And then, right now, with all of the other pitchers, including Kyle Harrison, who was recently placed on the 15-day injured list with the ankle sprain, the Giants' rotation, the Giants' pitching staff is simply patchwork right now. It's not good. It's got them to the point where they need to win just about every Hicks start and every Webb start. And that's something that they have not necessarily taken advantage of. They lose a Webb start earlier this week at Wrigley Field against the Cubs, and that's going to put this team in a hole. And that's exactly why you see a squad that's 36-40 on the regular season. You think about where the Giants expected to be after signing Blake Snell at the outset of this regular season a few days to go before they broke camp in Scottsdale. And you think about where they are right now. They're headed toward a very difficult month of July, where this is an organization that could face big picture questions about its future if they don't immediately turn things around. I think winning Saturday and winning Sunday at Busch Stadium in St. Louis is imperative. It all kind of starts with Jordan Hicks and Logan Webb, because if the Giants don't take care of business, what do the next 2 weeks look like for this ball club? Blake Snell's going to go down and start for AAA Sacramento tomorrow, which indicates that he's on the mend. He could be back relatively soon for the San Francisco Giants. Robbie Ray will then be pitching in AAA Sacramento. Of course, he's coming back from Tommy John surgery. He's going to throw 3 innings for AAA Sacramento tomorrow out of the bullpen. The Giants slowly building him up as he comes back from that Tommy John surgery that he had in April of last season. Alex Pavlovich and other Giants beat reporters reporting that about Robbie Ray. But Alex Cobb doesn't appear to be on the mend anytime soon. Doesn't appear like he will be back in this Giants rotation within the next few weeks. You've got Kyle Harrison, who they're hoping it's just a 15-day absence. But now Keaton Winn, who, look, he should have been taken out of the rotation regardless of injury because of his performance, but now he's unavailable to this squad. And down at AAA Sacramento, you've got Mason Black, who didn't pitch all that well for the Giants earlier this season. You've got, Landon Roop getting stretched out, Kaiwei Tang getting stretched out, but the Giants really need to tread water over the next few weeks before they get Snell back, before they get Harrison back, before they get Ray back, because otherwise this could spiral out of control before the All-Star break, and then it forces them to think about some really tough decisions about the future at the trade deadline. Because how likely is it for the Giants to overcome the 6-7 other teams right now that are jostling for these final wildcard spots? Obviously, there's a lot of mediocre teams in the National League. Obviously, there is an opportunity for the Giants with 2 good weeks of baseball to get hot and position themselves right back in the mix or atop the mix in the National League wildcard race. But 76 games into the season, we kind of have a good idea of what this Giants team is. And it's an underperforming squad that has relied too often on veterans who've been getting injured and veterans who've been underperforming. And Jordan Hicks is one of the great bright spots of the season for the San Francisco Giants, which is why there's hope going into today's start against his former club that he can start to ignite a turnaround for this ball club that has lost series to the Angels and the Cubs and is now on the brink of losing a series to the St. Louis Cardinals. But outside of Hicks and Webb in this Giants rotation, there are some big questions. And if the Giants get to a point a month from now where they need to consider selling at the trade deadline, this will be a failure of a season. We are not far off from, if the Giants underperform, if they struggle for the next few weeks, from deeming this season a failure late in July. Because you think about all the money the Giants spent this offseason, all the salary authorizations that the ownership group had to green light to put the Giants in a better position to improve from their 79 and 83 season a year ago. When you think about the possibility of having to sell at the deadline in a National League that outside of the Phillies and the Dodgers is full of mediocre teams, that would be a very bad look for the organization. It will be a very bad look for this front office led by Farhan Zaidi, and the Giants can't afford to have that happen. This is a franchise that has not won a playoff series since the 2014 World Series when the bullpen gates swung open, Madison Bumgarner came in and gave him 7 and delivered the performance of a lifetime against the Kansas City Royals. With each passing day, with each passing year, that memory grows farther and farther away. And this is a Giants team, this is a Giants organization. It's trying to earn back the trust, the loyalty of its fan base, a fan base that, put up with a style of baseball that it didn't necessarily agree with over the last few seasons, that was promised a more exciting, a better style of baseball, a roster that was more athletic, a roster that had better speed than it had a season ago. And so far, this roster, this team, this franchise has not delivered through 76 games. So the pressure is ratcheting up. And maybe the Giants will rise up to the occasion, rise up to the moment, and follow Jordan Hicks' lead today and start to turn around their season with back-to-back wins against the St. Louis Cardinals and take this series from a team that's very squarely in the wild card mix. But if they lose this series, it'll be 3 consecutive series losses against 3 teams that they absolutely should have handled. That coming into the season, they absolutely thought that they would be better than. And that's unacceptable at this point. So the pressure's on Hicks, the pressure's on Webb. The pressure, of course, is on Bob Melvin and this San Francisco Giants lineup that, of course, we just read. When we come back, we'll discuss Luis Matos' promotion to the major league level. We'll discuss Elliot Ramos, the season that he's having right now. Could be an all-star, as we mentioned on last week's show on Giants Warm-Up. And we will focus on the task ahead for a San Francisco Giants team that has a lot to prove this week at Busch Stadium. I'm Carrie Crowley. This is your Giants Warm-Up. You're listening to KNBR 104.5, 680, the Sports Leader.
KNBR Giants warm-up keeps rolling on the Sports Leader.
All right, we are back here on Giants warm-up. Carrie Crowley helping get you set for the Giants and the Cardinals. Game 2 of this 3-game set coming your way 11:15 this morning here on the Leader. The Giants up against the St. Louis Cardinals team that has overtaken them in the wild card standings. The Cardinals sitting right now at 37-37. They're in control of the second wild card spot. In fact, tied for the second wild card spot with a few other teams. The San Diego Padres at 40-40, the Arizona Diamondbacks at 38-38. So there's clearly a lot of work to do for a San Francisco Giants team that's, look, only 2 games back in the wild card standings, but has a ton of other teams that have passed them in this race. Even the Washington Nationals have gone ahead of the San Francisco Giants right now. The Nationals only a game under 500. The New York Mets 36-38. They've moved ahead of the Giants in this wild card chase. The Cincinnati Reds and the Pittsburgh Pirates 36-39. Each of those teams, they've each moved ahead of the Giants. And so this week has turned into an utter disaster, and it's about time that the Giants stop that from happening. It's about time that they start pitching much better and start finding more consistent performers. And so Giants made a few roster moves today. We mentioned them at the top of this Giants warm-up. Keaton Winn heads to the injured list after a brutal start on Thursday at Rickwood Field. He heads to the IL with an elbow inflammation. The Giants not releasing details on the significance of that, but it's something that Winn did deal with at the outset of spring training this year. He also was sidelined with an elbow injury at some point during last season, so that'll be something to monitor over the next few weeks. And Mike Yastrzemski hits the 10-day injured list with an oblique strain. The Giants are hoping that it's a very mild strain, but it gives them the opportunity to call up a few players from AAA Sacramento. David Villar comes up today. He will play first base for this club, so Wilmer Flores on the bench. You've also got Trenton Brooks on the bench, which means they're going with a very interesting roster construction of having 3 different first basemen on this club, but they'll go with David Villar against Miles Mikolas. And then you've got Luis Matos coming back to the Major League roster. He gets the start in right field today. I suppose that Bob Melvin could have put Austin Slater out there in right field, but you've got a number of different Giants outfielders struggling right now. Michael Conforto having just an abysmal month of June. Ever since he came off the injured list, he's been the worst qualified hitter in Major League Baseball. It's been very difficult going for Conforto right now, and the Giants have masked that a little bit by having Jorge Soler, their top free agent acquisition on the offensive side outside of Jung-Hoo Lee. Jorge Soler has taken off in the month of June. He's provided much better at bats. He's up to 9 home runs on the season. The OPS now above league average at 715. They obviously still expect a lot more from Jorge Soler, but Elliot Ramos has been the guy carrying this ball club. And Elliot Ramos, 24 years old, in center field today for the San Francisco Giants. He's got 10 home runs, 35 RBIs on the season, a 307 average, and a 935 OPS. He is very clearly in consideration for an all-star nod this year. It would mark the end of a 40-year drought for the San Francisco Giants if Elliot Ramos is to make the all-star club. It has been 40 years since Chili Davis was the last homegrown outfielder from the Giants organization to make a National League all-star team. You think about all the different first-round draft picks they've spent on outfielders who've never panned out. Elliot Ramos, the 2017 first-round pick, it's finally working for him 7 years after he was drafted. And I point this out because Ramos is still just 24 years old. He's still a work in progress. He's still not in his prime yet as a Major League Baseball player. You kind of wait till the age 26, 27, 28 to really see what a guy is capable of. But he's showing that the at-bat quality that you saw when Ramos first came up a few years ago, it was improved by the time that he spent at the minor league level, by the experience that he gained at the major league level. This is someone who came up at 22 years old in the year 2022. And look, he only had a brief glimpse of an opportunity at the major league level. He went 2 for 20 in very limited playing time 2 seasons ago. Last year, he comes up in 25 games for the San Francisco Giants. He goes 10 for 56. So the average sitting at 179 last year, the OPS 537. But he hit the cover off the baseball in AAA Sacramento during the latter half of last season. And I really felt like as the Giants kind of spiraled out of control in the months of August and September of last year, they missed a golden opportunity to give Ramos at bats at the major league level. He did not get consistent playing time down the stretch for this ball club, and it led to Ramos kind of falling down the depth chart entering spring training this year. You remember, headed into spring training, Matos was probably behind Wade Meckler, who's now begun a rehab assignment down in the Arizona Complex League. He was added to the 40-man roster last year. He was behind Luis Matos on the 40-man roster at that point. In terms of the depth chart, Matos spent more time at the big league level a season ago. And you go into spring training this year, and even though Ramos had some good batted balls in early days of Cactus League play, he just was completely forgotten about. He was optioned out on either March 10th or March 11th, very early in spring training, and he had to prove himself in a very significant way down at AAA Sacramento to get back on the radar of the Giants front office, of the evaluators in this organization. It left them to the point where when Austin Slater went on the injured list with the concussion and Michael Conforto was on the injured list at the same time, I think Jorge Soler was dealing with an injury, they had no choice but to promote Elliot Ramos and to give him consistent at-bats. And fortunately for the Giants, and most especially for Ramos, he has produced. He has seized the opportunity. He's taken advantage of every single at-bat that the Giants have given him. And he's very clearly become a major part of not only the current team, but of the future San Francisco Giants. You can project forward to 2025, 2026, 2027, and you can easily envision Elliot Ramos playing a very significant role for this team moving forward. You'll get Jung-Hoo Lee back off of the shoulder surgery next year, and then it's what will the Giants do with that third outfield slot. And I really believe that Luis Matos will have the opportunity to claim that. I hope that the Giants give it to him in a very serious way over the next month or so headed into the trade deadline, because Matos 22 years old, comes back to the Major League roster today to replace the injured Mike Yastrzemski, starting in right field and batting ninth for this ball club. So batting ninth, it takes some of the pressure off of him that he felt after winning National League Player of the Week award in May due to the great performance that he had against the Dodgers, and then over the weekend at Oracle Park against the Colorado Rockies. Things started to fall apart for him on the following road trip. He had some good games against the Pittsburgh Pirates and, of course, helped contribute to a big comeback win with that late single into left field, taking advantage of a Brian Reynolds mistake in left field and advancing to second base, engineering a comeback single-handedly with his speed, with his awareness, with his baseball IQ in the late innings. But after that, Matos went on a 5-for-39 stretch. He really started to expand the strike zone. He did not look good or comfortable at the plate, and it was clear that Major League pitchers had adjusted to Luis Matos, who doesn't have the same type of power as Elliot Ramos, who doesn't have the same command or control of the strike zone that Elliot Ramos has, but he does have better contact skills. He does have the ability to put the ball in play. Look, Luis Matos is probably not going to be a 20 home run hitter at the Major League level ever in his career, but you can project him to be a very successful outfielder because we've seen the ceiling. We know what it looks like when Luis Matos is at his best, and in fact, we saw it just a few weeks ago. The 22-year-old put together an outstanding streak, and then it all fell apart, and I really believe that if the Giants had kept him at the Major League level and given him more of an opportunity, he would have benefited. He would have benefited from having the opportunity to adjust to the adjustments that Major League pitchers made against him. And the Giants would have had to live with some of those challenges, but I would have rather seen Luis Matos get those opportunities than see Michael Conforto, who will not be on this roster next year, who will become a free agent, who's a veteran player, get those opportunities, because Conforto's last few weeks have objectively been even worse than what you saw from Luis Matos when he was at his worst. And I am all for the belief Giants should be gunning for a playoff spot this year. The mediocrity is pervasive in the National League, and all it will take is 2 good weeks to really solidify yourself as a clear wild card contender. But Michael Conforto is not getting the Giants there with the at-bats that he's given this team in June. Luis Matos could help the Giants now and, most especially, help the Giants in the future. And so if he takes off with this opportunity, if he, for the next 10 days until Mike Yastrzemski is healthy again and ready to come back for this, rush to the All-Star break, head into the trade deadline, if he takes advantage, the Giants cannot afford to send him back down. They'll have to make a tough decision. They'll have to subtract a veteran player from this roster. They'll have to make a decision that, due to the roster status that the Giants have right now, could be uncomfortable. Cutting a player like a Slater or a Conforto with money that's still owed to them over the course of the regular season. But Ramos has proven at 24 years old that he deserved more of a chance. And now that they've given him one, he's running with it. 22 years old, Luis Matos 2 years behind Elliot Ramos. You can't expect him to come up and be consistently good for as long as Ramos has been consistently good. You can't expect the same caliber production. In fact, they're very different players at the plate. But what you can expect is for Luis Matos to provide a spark, provide some energy, and maybe provide a few things to this roster that they don't have right now with their veteran outfielders. I would really like Luis Matos at AAA Sacramento to be stealing bases. I would really like the Giants to be emphasizing that in the minor leagues, because you've got Tyler Fitzgerald coming up to the big league level on Thursday as the 27th man and not stealing in the 9th inning against the Cardinals in a 1-run ball game against one of the best closers in all of baseball. You've got Grant McCray down at AAA Sacramento, who has blazing speed in the outfield, could be a Gold Glover one day in center field if he can hit enough to get the opportunity at the Major League level for the Giants or any other ball club. But he's not working on stealing bases. You look at him, he's got like 12 on the season. You got Hunter Bishop, who's got tremendous speed, an amazing athlete. Giants' first-round draft pick in 2019, not working on stealing bases. For whatever reason, this Giants organization, this regime led by Farhan Zaidi and Bob Melvin as the manager, they put no emphasis on controlling the running game. They put no emphasis on winning games on the base paths. And to me, that's one of the biggest detriments for this Giants ball club. After the rules changed last year, bigger bases, you've got the pitch clock, you've got fewer pickoff attempts awarded to pitchers right now. The Giants are the one team that just seemingly refused to take advantage of Major League Baseball opening up the base pass, opening up the running game. And you've seen other teams take advantage of this against the Giants, despite the fact that they have a Gold Glove caliber catcher in Patrick Bailey. Their pitchers aren't minding anyone on the bases right now. In fact, one of the worst things that this pitching staff has done this season is let runners run wild. There are very few attempts to keep runners close to first base. There are very few opportunities for Patrick Bailey to seriously have a chance to throw runners out at second base. It is confounding, it's confusing, and I don't get why the Giants, who seemingly have better team speed this year, you look at Matt Chapman coming into the mix, you look at Elliot Ramos coming up and being able to play a capable center field, that shows you that he's got some speed. You got Luis Matos back in the mix now. Tyro Estrada is someone who's always been a threat to steal a bag. It hasn't been part of his game this year. Austin Slater, he was a 20 stolen base threat just a few seasons ago. The Giants just don't control the base pass, and their pitchers, their relief pitchers in particular, are huge offenders of this. Their relief pitchers, someone gets on first base, sometimes, it's a single is as good as a double because you're not looking over, you're not throwing over, you're allowing gigantic leads, and the Giants just have no control in the late innings when someone wants to take a bag on them. It's got to be utterly frustrating to catcher Patrick Bailey. It's got to be utterly frustrating, in my opinion, to the manager Bob Melvin and coaching staff, and yet we haven't seen enough done about it. We haven't seen the Giants look at this and say, hey, this is a big problem plaguing our team that should be at round 500, should be in the mix for the second wildcard spot with all of these other ball clubs right now, with the Cardinals, with the Padres, with the Diamondbacks, and yet it remains an issue for this ball club. So it's got to be a focus today. It's got to be a focus moving forward for this Giants team, being better in the running game, in controlling the running game on the base pass has to be a major component of the Giants during the second half of this season. They'll play their 77th game today. Next week, they will reach the official half point of this 2024 season. So much needs to change for the San Francisco Giants to be a playoff squad. They need Blake Snell to come back and look like Blake Snell. They need Robbie Ray to come back from Tommy John surgery and live up to Robbie Ray and what he can be. They need Kyle Harrison to come back from the injured list and continue to pitch well in his rookie season. And they need to somehow get through the next week to 10 days of a lot of bullpen games. I don't know how they're going to do it, but it starts today with Jordan Hicks. It continues tomorrow with Logan Webb, and they absolutely need these two games. Is it the end of the road if they lose them? Absolutely not, but it just puts more pressure on this bullpen, which is going to be exposed over the next week or so, as the Giants lost another starting pitcher, Keaton Winn, to the injured list earlier today. I'm Carrie Crowley. This is your Giants warm-up. Look at the National League standings on the other side. Also, our player of the week. You're listening to KNBR 104.5 680, the sports leader.
Welcome back to our KNBR Giants warm-up on the Sports Leader.
All right, we are back here on Giants warm-up. Carrie Crowley helping get you set for Giants baseball. Giants baseball on the radio comes your way 11:15 this morning from St. Louis. Jordan Hicks takes the ball for San Francisco. Miles Mikolas takes the ball for the St. Louis Cardinals. Hicks facing his former ball club. Some good news for the Giants. Susan Slusser of the San Francisco Chronicle, speaking among the other reporters with Bob Melvin right now at Busch Stadium, says that Blake Snell will make his rehab start tomorrow, and if all goes well for the Giants, Snell could return the next time through the rotation. So you figure if he pitches on Sunday, that could set him up to face the Los Angeles Dodgers on Friday, fireworks night at Oracle Park. The Giants have 4 games this week against the Chicago Cubs. They've absolutely got to take 3 of them at minimum. They just have to be better at home. The Cubs aren't good. The Cubs beat the Giants twice in 3 games in Chicago. It is imperative the Giants reverse that and win the series. And then the Dodgers come to town for the Giants' most difficult series of the remainder of the first half. You start to look at the beginning of July, they're on the road against the Braves. They're on the road against the Guardians, another very good ball club. And then they'll close out the first half with 6 games at home, 3 against the Toronto Blue Jays and 3 against the Minnesota Twins. It's time to take a look now at our Key Player of the Week, sponsored by Key Point Credit Union. Well, for the Giants, there's really no other option than Elliot Ramos right now. What a week he had over his last 7 ball games. Ramos 10 for 35, 4 of those hits home runs, 2 of those hits doubles. He's got 11 ribbies, 3 walks during this stretch. So a 313 average, just a casual 750 slugging percentage, and a 1.121 OPS. He has been the best hitter in the National League in the month of June. It's amazing how good Elliot Ramos has been, and at the same time, it's astounding that the Giants haven't been better. Because with Ramos so good, with Ramos carrying this lineup, it's usually good enough for a team to pick up a few more wins than the Giants currently have. But the pitching staff has completely fallen apart for the San Francisco Giants. That's a major issue. We addressed it on Giants warm-up earlier today. We'll continue to talk pitching over the next few days, but Blake Snell getting that rehab start tomorrow theoretically should be able to join the Giants rotation by Friday or Saturday when they take on the Dodgers. Giants need Snell to be good, and at the very least, they need him to soak up some innings, which is something that he has not done enough of this season. They'll turn to Jordan Hicks today. As I mentioned, he's set to surpass his career high in innings today, and it's just Saturday, June 22nd. So right now, it's time to take a look at the standings, sponsored by Alameda County Probation's Department. Visit joinacpd.org today for a career that matters. A look at the National League West right now. The Dodgers lead it 47-31. They've got an 8-game advantage over both the Padres and the Diamondbacks right now. The Padres 40-40 on the season. The Diamondbacks 38-38. Big win in Philadelphia last night. The Giants in 4th place in the National League West. Unacceptable. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows that they need to turn things around starting today with Jordan Hicks on the mound. They're 36-40, 2 games out of that 3rd wildcard slot in the National League. Fortunately for the Giants, the Rockies are 10 games behind them, 26-50. The Rockies have lost 2 in a row. They're just an abysmal ball club once again. In the NL East, the Philadelphia Phillies 49-26. Even after they've lost 2 in a row, they're 4-6 in their last 10, but they have a commanding 6-game edge over the Atlanta Braves in that NL East. The Braves, the wild card leaders by 5.5 games, 11 games over 500 right now. The Braves should be a playoff team, and they should be looking to add at the trade deadline. 2 other teams to keep an eye on in that National League East. The Washington Nationals up to 37-38 on the season, half game out of the 3rd wild card slot. The Nationals have slowly moved ahead of the San Francisco Giants, and the Mets have as well. The Mets 36-38. They've had a very good month of June, 8-2 in their last 10 ball games. The Mets 12.5 games out in the East, but suddenly creeping in to wild card contention because, again, mediocrity is pervasive this year. The Miami Marlins, 26-49. They're awful right now, contending with the Rockies to be the worst team in the National League. And then in the NL Central, just about every team is still in this playoff race. The Milwaukee Brewers have a clear lead of the division right now, 44-32, 12 games over 500. They've lost their last 2, but they still hold a 6-game edge over the St. Louis Cardinals right now, 37-37. The Cardinals tied at 500 with the Diamondbacks and the Padres as well. Cincinnati Reds, Pittsburgh Pirates, both 36-39 right now, a game and a half out in this NL wildcard race. And then the Chicago Cubs, like the San Francisco Giants, 36-40. And so if you zoom out and you take a big picture look at the National League standings right now, you've got the Rockies at 26-50 at the very bottom. The Miami Marlins just next to them, half game ahead of them, 26-49. The 2 other teams that are at the bottom of the National League standings are the Giants and the Cubs. That doesn't put things in perspective for you. I don't know what will. Clearly, the Giants need to play better baseball over the next few weeks headed into the All-Star break. Let's take a look at the American League standings right now. The New York Yankees, 51-27, leading the AL East, but not running away with the division. In fact, the Baltimore Orioles took 2 of 3 from the Yankees earlier this week. The Orioles, 49-26, just a half game out in that AL East. They've got an 8.5 game advantage in the AL wildcard chase. Boston Red Sox, 40-36 right now. They've done a great job pitching this season. Andrew Bailey, their new pitching coach, of course, came over from Gabe Kapler's former staff in San Francisco. The Red Sox have won 7 of their last 10 ball games, and they're only a game out in the AL wildcard hunt. The Tampa Bay Rays, 37-39. The Toronto Blue Jays, 35-40. Both of those teams, it's easy to envision them becoming trade deadline sellers, opening up this market a little bit that remains unclear right now. Look at the AL Central. We mentioned the Giants will be on the road playing the Guardians at the beginning of July. The Guardians, 47-26 in Stephen Vogt's first season as the manager. Bay Area's own Stephen Kwan flirting with a 400 batting average in the outfield there for the Guardians. He is just a sensational player to watch. Stephen Kwan, so much fun with his contact skills. I think Luis Arias is the modern-day Tony Gwynn. Look at Stephen Kwan and what he's doing in Cleveland in a market that doesn't get a ton of coverage. Kansas City Royals in second place in that AL Central division, 42-35 right now. 7 games back in that division, but they do have a half-game edge in the AL wildcard hunt. Minnesota Twins right now, 41-35. They're in third place in that AL wildcard chase right now. Had a very interesting season in Minnesota. They've lost 3 in a row. It's been a very streaky team. Carlos Correa did get hot for a few games. In fact, he got hot for about a few weeks here at the beginning of June. Detroit Tigers, 35-40, starting to slide a little bit. And then the worst team in baseball, the Chicago White Sox, 20-57. If you didn't catch the end of yesterday's ball game against the Detroit Tigers, I've never really seen anything quite like what we saw. The Tigers were on the mound trying to close out a ball game against the White Sox. It was a one-run game. White Sox had a runner on first base, and the batter at the plate hits a fly ball to the outfield. There's just one out. Easy can of corn for the center fielder. The runner on first base didn't tag up. He thought there were 2 outs. He was running with the pitch. He takes off. He goes round second base and doubled off to end the game in just confounding fashion. So, for any Giants fan that feels down on their luck this season, remember, it could always be worse. You could always be a White Sox fan. Seattle Mariners in first place in the AL West right now, 10 games over 500 at 44-34. And then you've got a ton of teams in the middle of the pack right now in the AL West. The Houston Astros, 36-40. The Texas Rangers, 35-40. And I guess not a ton of teams. The Angels further out than I thought. They're 15 games under 500 at 30-45 right now. The Angels, who, of course, came into Oracle Park last weekend and won a series against the Giants. Not a good look for San Francisco. The Oakland A's round out that division, 20 games under 500 at 29-49 right now. So before we toss things over to the pregame show, one more look at the lineup that Bob Melvin put out today for the San Francisco Giants. It'll be Brett Wisely, the shortstop, hitting leadoff for this ball club, 758 OPS on the season. Elliot Ramos in the 2-hole that he's settled into over the last month, 10 home runs, 35 ribbies on the season. He'll play center field. Patrick Bailey, the switch-hitting catcher, will bat third for the Giants. Jorge Soler, the designated hitter, he is the Giants' cleanup man today. 9 home runs on the season now for Soler after the big grand slam earlier this week in the 6-5 loss to the Chicago Cubs on Wednesday. Matt Chapman will bat fifth and play third base. Giants really hoping that Matt Chapman can get it going. He's had a number of doubles this year, but again, the production has been inconsistent at the plate. Michael Conforto will bat 6th and play left field. Really rough month of June for Michael Conforto for the San Francisco Giants. He needs to turn things around for the All-Star break, or else he could be in jeopardy of losing a roster spot here during the second half of the season. Tyro Estrada will bat 7th, play second base for the Giants. David Villar, called up from AAA Sacramento to make his season debut. He will play first base for the Giants. Luis Matos back on the Major League roster today, playing right field and batting ninth. If Luis Matos can get hot, the Giants could have something in the 9-1-2 slots. You've got Matos, Wisely, Ramos, 3 young players, all under the age of 25 years old. Big opportunity for the Giants. If they can get the young kids going, that might be able to turn this season around. It all starts today with Jordan Hicks on the hill at Busch Stadium against his former ball club. He was a reliever for the Cardinals. He's thriving as a starter for the San Francisco Giants, and they need a great performance out of Hicks today. Giants pregame show coming your way next. You're listening to KNBR 104.5 680, the sports leader.
KNBR, the sports leader.
After one of the most meaningful nights of the season, the Giants arrive from Rickwood Field here in downtown St. Louis for Game 2 of this 3-game series against the Cardinals. Giants, in desperate need of some good baseball to win, send the former Cardinal Jordan Hicks to the mound as he aims to show his old team what they're missing. The Cardinals send Miles Michaelis to the mound, who has a